Chapter 960. Tang Jing did not choose to go to the ghost realm through the whirlpool in the air. He did not know what dangers were lurking there, so it was better to be careful. He took out a ghost tablet that he had not used for a long time. Activating his true chi, the ghost tablet immediately bloomed with a black light, forming a black door. Although it was still daytime and there was a scorching sun overhead, a gust of cold wind blew directly from the ghost gate, causing people to involuntarily shiver. Wu Junshan and the other two looked at this scene curiously, but the others did not find it strange. Tang Zheng looked at everyone and said, "I'll go first." "Wait!" Wu shouted and threw herself into Tang Zheng's arms, hugging him tightly. Ignoring everyone's gaze, she kissed him and said, "You must come back, I'll wait for you." Tang Jing brushed her black hair behind her ear and said softly, "Don't worry, wait for me to come back." After saying that, he hugged her tightly, as if he wanted to rub her into his body. The others quietly looked at this scene and tacitly did not disturb this young couple kissing each other. After a while, Tang Jing released Wu, waved to everyone, turned around and walked into the ghost gate. Everyone stared at his back. Suddenly, a black light flashed and the ghost gate disappeared, leaving only a wisp of cold wind, but it quickly disappeared under the scorching sun. The cold wind roared and the sky was dark, like the sky before a storm. The yin qi in the air was like a blood-sucking bug, trying to drill into Tang Zheng's body. He had already experienced it once, so he did not feel anything strange. The place to enter the ghost realm this time was obviously different from the last time. It was a barren land, without a single ghost. Where should I go first? He muttered to himself, pondered for a moment, and made a decision. This is a matter of life and death for the ghost realm. The ghost realm's 10 kings of hell have probably gathered together to discuss countermeasures. Fengdu City is the center of power in the ghost realm. They must have gathered there, so I'll go to Fengdu City to inquire about the news. He was experienced, so he began to disguise himself. Circulating his power, the yin qi between heaven and earth quickly gathered towards him, enveloping his body. All of a sudden, he appeared completely lifeless and sinister, making him appear no different from a normal netherworldly citizen. Netherworldly citizens were the lowest level of existence in the ghost realm, so they were the least eye-catching. Thus, it was most suitable for him to use them as a disguise. The last time he entered the world of spirits and souls, it was under the jurisdiction of the Chakravarti king. This time, he had no idea which Yama king's jurisdiction he was in. However, if he wanted to go to Fengdu City, he could use the teleportation formation in each Yama king city. As long as he found a city, he would be able to reach Fengdu City. However, he was in the vast wilderness, where there were few traces of ghosts. He didn't even know which direction to go. He could only choose a direction. Activating his power, he turned into an afterimage and disappeared. Fengdu Necropolis was heavily guarded. All of the netherworldly citizens were hiding in their homes, trembling in fear as they peered through their windows at the netherworldly operatives patrolling the streets. During this period of time, the atmosphere in the ghost realm had undergone a huge change. There were many more ghost messengers in the streets and alleys, and there were even many elite soldiers stationed outside the city. Everyone had a premonition that something big was about to happen, but as the lowest level of netherworldly citizens, they had no idea what was going on. However, everyone still had a deep impression of what happened not long ago. Ever since they heard that someone was causing trouble in Fengdu City, many things had happened in the ghost realm. The prestige of Fengdu City's Yama King was greatly challenged, and his position as the head of the 10 Yama Kings was almost snatched away by the other Yama Kings. After a long period of open strife and veiled struggle, the Yama King managed to retain his position as the head of the 10 Yama Kings. During this time, the grievances and anger in his heart were indescribable. He hated the culprit of all this to the core. However, the culprit had already fallen into the river Styx and was bound to die, so he had nowhere to vent his anger. At this moment, the anger in the Yama King's heart surged again, and it was getting higher and higher, as if it was going to jump out from the top of his head. The 10 Yama Kings were gathered, and the gloomy atmosphere in the main hall had reached a terrifying level. The Yama King looked at the other Yama Kings. These people had been fighting openly and veiled for many years, so he was very clear about the thoughts in each other's hearts. However, the crisis this time made the 10 Yama Kings temporarily put aside their prejudices and work together. They did not hesitate to take the risk and went to the 9 underworlds to collect the most vicious ghosts in the ghost realm, and then refine that huge monster. This was because they knew how powerful the Tree of Life was. Ordinary methods could not hurt the Tree of Life, only the 9 underworlds' lightning was effective. They were full of confidence, waiting for the monster to return in triumph, but they did not expect that the monster would fail, and be defeated so badly. This made them angry, but also made them feel a deep sense of powerlessness. The plan that they were full of confidence in failed, so what should they do next? Were they to let the Tree of Life absorb the source energy of the ghost realm? Then, without waiting for the enemy to make a move, the ghost realm would turn from a large world to a small world, and could be destroyed at any time. As the rulers of the ghost realm, they certainly did not want to see this happen. In the main hall, all the Yama Kings frowned and looked at each other. As the head of the Yama Kings, the Yama King naturally could not sit by and watch the situation ferment, so he took the lead to break the silence and said, "Everyone, let's brainstorm and see if there is any other way." King Qingguang was a red-faced man with a full beard. He said in a rough voice, "We can attack the human world directly. Now that most of the cultivators in the human world have been expelled and the number of talents has declined, the ghost realm is unprecedentedly strong. I don't believe that we can't flatten the human world." The Chakravarti King and King Qingguang were not on good terms, so after hearing this, he snorted and said, "You call this an idea? It's more like a rotten idea." King Qingguang was furious, his cheeks became redder, and his voice was like thunder as he said, "Whose idea are you calling a rotten idea? Don't tell me you have any good suggestions." The Chakravarti King smiled coldly and said, "I don't have any good ideas, but at least I won't come up with such a rotten idea that is obviously wrong. If we attack the human world, it must be at night, but as long as the enemy delays us until the day, blocking our retreat, and making it impossible for us to return to the ghost realm, then there is a possibility that we will be wiped out. Then we can just flatten the human world before the day comes," King Qingguang said angrily. The Chakravarti King laughed, "You want to flatten the human world in one night? You are looking down on the human world too much. Although the cultivators in the human world have been expelled, the human world's technology is developing very quickly. Do you know about technology?" "What's so great about technology? It's just child's play," King Qingguang said disapprovingly. The Chakravarti King snorted and said, "King Qingguang, you have always been so arrogant and conceited that you don't even know about the human world situation." "What do you mean?" King Qingguang was confused. What do you mean?" "The human world's technology is very powerful, and many times it is not inferior to spells. If you want to flatten the human world, do you think you can surpass these technological powers? I dare say that with your strength alone, flatten the human world is just a fool's dream, and you might even lose your life in the human world." The Chakravarti King's words made King Qingguang furious. King Qingguang wanted to refute again, but he heard King Yanluo's angry roar, as if the roof was about to be lifted off. "Do you think it's not chaotic enough? You haven't found a solution yet, and you are already panicking. Don't you feel ashamed?" King Yanluo's words were like 2 big slaps to the 2 kings of hell, and they could not help but blush. King Qingguang's face was like a soldering iron. King Qingguang's intentions are very good, but the solution is indeed not feasible. The human world's technology is not to be underestimated. Moreover, with the help of mysterious experts, it is impossible for us to finish the battle in one night. We have to think of another way. King Yanluo made the final decision. The Chakravarti King laughed proudly and glanced at King Qingguang, as if to say, "See, I'm right." King Qingguang was intimidated by King Yanluo's prestige, so he snorted heavily and did not contradict the Chakravarti king. But there has to be a way. The other kings of hell discussed. Suddenly, King Songjiang, who had been silent all this time, raised his head. His attire was very different from the other kings of hell, with a feather fan and a silk headband, and a pale face without any beard. He looked like a weak scholar. However, his influence in the ghost world was not to be underestimated, and was second only to King Yanluo. This was because not only was his cultivation high, but he was also very intelligent and resourceful. King Songjiang's life was very legendary. When he was in the human world, he was a mountain king who led a group of heroes in a rebellion and almost overturned the dynasty at that time. After his death, he did not reincarnate, but became a ghost citizen of the lowest level. However, he did not remain silent. Instead, he had a fortuitous encounter and started to cultivate. Step by step, he rose to power and finally sat on the throne of King Yanluo. He was a legend in the ghost world, and also an anomaly. Moreover, he was very capable. He was the one who went against King Yanluo as an equal, and he was also the one who almost went to war with King Yanluo some time ago. He had always been dissatisfied with the current situation and coveted King Yanluo's throne of the 10 kings of hell for a long time. Seeing him raise his head, the other kings of hell subconsciously shut their mouths and looked at him, waiting to see what kind of advice he would give. Songjiang waved the feather fan in his hand and said, "Actually, it's not that there's no way. First, we can continue to condense ghosts in the 9 underworlds and refine ghosts of the 9 underworlds. Then, we can attack the Tree of Life again." Before he could finish, King Yanluo frowned and interrupted, "This method is not feasible at all, because the source energy of our ghost world is almost at a critical point. If we let the Tree of Life continue to absorb it, it won't be long before our world is downgraded to a small world." The others nodded in agreement, obviously not approving of Songjiang's method. Songjiang was neither too fast nor too slow. He didn't get angry and continued, "I'm not done yet. This is just a backup plan. Besides, even if we refine the netherworld ghost again, since the other party can defeat him the first time, they can still do it a second time." Someone curled their lips. Since it was a bad plan, why bother talking about it? Songjiang did not seem to see their reaction and continued, "I think the second method is the best." Oh. Everyone's interest was piqued. The others scratched their heads but could not think of a way, and he actually had a better plan. Could this be the suppression of intelligence? Chapter 961. Songjiang waved his feather fan and swept his gaze across the crowd. He only said 3 words, "Dizang of Goguryeo." As soon as he said this, King Yama immediately stood up from his chair. The other kings of hell also subconsciously grabbed the handles of their chairs, and their expressions changed drastically. Songjiang looked at everyone's reaction with a smile and didn't say anything. However, this sentence was like a stone that was thrown into a lake, causing ripples in circles and setting off stormy waves in everyone's hearts. King Yama looked down at Songjiang and asked sternly, "Why did you mention him?" Songjiang asked, "Don't you think this is a good way to break out of this situation?" King Yama snorted and said, "Good idea. I don't think so. This is probably a worse idea than the one before." "Is that so?" Songjiang smiled coldly, "Who here can say that they are a match for Dizang of Goguryeo?" The other kings of hell looked at each other, but no one dared to say anything. A person with such a great reputation was actually able to intimidate this group of ghost realm lords. It was truly inconceivable. The veins on King Yama's forehead throbbed as he asked warily, "Songjiang, what is your purpose in bringing up Dizang of Goguryeo at this time?" Songjiang remained calm and said indifferently, "I am considering the survival of the ghost realm. Since we are all helpless, let Dizang of Goguryeo deal with the Tree of Life or those enemies. I don't think they are a match for Dizang of Goguryeo, and the tree of life is not a match for Dizang of Goguryeo. Someone pondered and nodded slowly. Song Jiangwang's words are not completely unreasonable. Yes, I also think it's feasible. After all, we have no other way. If Dizang of Goguryeo makes a move, wouldn't everything be solved? Looking at everyone's reaction, King Yama was furious and said, "Don't you know what it means for Dizang of Goguryeo to come out?" "What does it mean?" Song Jiangwang smiled as he looked at King Yama. "Song Jiangwang, don't ask questions that you already know the answer to. You know best what Dizang of Goguryeo advocates. If he comes out, can you still keep your positions?" King Yama asked. When the other Yama kings heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Many of them nodded. "That's right, we can't let him out. If he comes out, the ghost world will be in chaos, and our position will be in danger." King Yama smugly glanced at Song Jiangwang, as if he was saying that he was right. Song Jiangwang didn't care at all. He leaned back and spread his hands, saying, "Then think of something else." I don't believe that with so many people, we can't think of a way," King Yama said indignantly. Song Jiangwang didn't say a word. He looked at everyone with interest. He was resourceful. Back then, he knew what everyone's reaction would be when he made this suggestion. However, he still brought it up without hesitation. Because there was no other way. This was the only path they could take. As for why everyone was so afraid of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, other than the fact that his cultivation level was the highest, the other reason was because of his views. He advocated for the equality of all ghosts. Since that was the case, the authority class in the ghost realm would naturally not like him. However, his strength was so high that no one was a match for him, let alone kill him. In the end, the resourceful Song Jiangwang came up with a plan. Finally, he banished the Dizang of Goguryeo to an extremely terrifying place, the 9 underworlds. The 9 underworlds was an extremely dangerous place in the ghost world. Malicious ghosts ran amok there. These ghosts had practically lost their ability to think normally. They only acted based on their vicious nature. There were too many of them, so much so that even the ghost world was helpless and didn't dare to enter. The Dizang of Goguryeo advocated the equality of all ghosts. Without a doubt, he would topple the 10 kings of hell from their thrones of power. Therefore, Song Jiangwang came up with a clever idea and proposed a countermeasure. That was to provoke him. Since the Dizang of Goguryeo was so compassionate, then he should first purify the malicious ghosts in the 9 underworlds. Only by purifying them would he have the qualifications to promote his home ground and purify the people of the ghost world. The Dizang of Goguryeo didn't know that this was a plan, so he readily agreed. At the same time, he swore that he wouldn't become a Buddha until the underworlds were empty. Buddha was the ultimate state of the Dizang of Goguryeo's cultivation. His cultivation was different from others. He swore that if he didn't purify the malicious ghosts in the underworlds, let them leave the underworlds and become normal members of the ghost world, and let the underworlds be empty, then his cultivation wouldn't be able to reach the most perfect ultimate state. For a cultivator, the pursuit of cultivation was very strong. For him to make such a decision, it could be seen how great his determination was. The Dizang of Goguryeo went to the 9 underworlds and never returned. This was because there were too many malicious ghosts in the 9 underworlds, and he couldn't purify all of them. This completely resolved the crisis of the 10 kings of hell. It was also because of this that he had the capital to contend with the king of hell. Many kings of hell and the power class were very grateful to him for this kindness. Not long ago, they went to the periphery of the 9 underworlds to collect ghosts and found that the malicious ghosts had indeed decreased a lot. Obviously, the Dizang of Goguryeo's role couldn't be underestimated. However, if he wanted to empty the underworlds, it wouldn't be a short time. The other kings of hell started to discuss and proposed many ideas, but they were all rejected one by one because it wouldn't work at all. Everyone had reached a dead end. They looked at each other in dismay, but there was nothing they could do. Gradually, some people looked at King Song Jiangwang. A king of hell who was close to him understood and said without leaving a trace, "Actually, I think that what King Song Jiangwang said is not a bad idea. Back then, the Dizang of Goguryeo couldn't shake us. Today, he may not have the ability to do so." Moreover, he made a heavy oath. The underworlds have not been emptied yet. He only left the 9 underworlds temporarily. After the matter is done, with his temper, he will definitely return and fulfill his promise. King Yanluo glared fiercely at the other party and gave a look to the people next to him. Immediately, a king of hell stood up and retorted, "Then what if he doesn't return to the 9 underworlds? After so many years, he probably already understood that we deliberately set him up. If he comes out, would he be stupid enough to go back? When the time comes, you can't even protect yourselves. Then, you will know that you were wrong." Seeing that King Yanluo's people had taken the bait, King Song Jiangwang put away the feather fan with a puff. Holding the feather fan with both hands, he sat up straight and said, "If the Dizang of Goguryeo wanted to come out, he would have come out long ago. Can the 9 underworlds trap him?" When these words came out, there was complete silence. That was the truth. The 9 serenities hell couldn't trap Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva at all. If he wanted to violate his oath, he could easily escape. How could they still have the carefree days in the ghost world? The other Yama kings immediately understood this and their faces turned red with embarrassment. After all, their happy days were all thanks to the charity of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This was not a good thing to say and it was a loss of face. King Yanluo glared fiercely at King Song Jiangwang and said, "What if he didn't think it through before, but after coming out, he thought it through and changed his mind at the last minute? That's fine. Since you don't agree, then let's wait for the ghost realm's origin energy to be completely absorbed. Then, one day, the ghost realm will be annihilated." King Song Jiangwang shrugged and said, "No way." Someone immediately objected. Although inviting the Dizang of Goguryeo is a dangerous move, there is still a glimmer of hope. If we allow the tree of life to absorb our origin energy, then we will just be sitting there waiting for death. Wouldn't that make people laugh their teeth off? Immediately, there were even more voices of agreement. It was obvious that they agreed with King Song Jiangwang's idea. The Yama king saw that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. He was gradually becoming weaker and weaker, becoming an isolated island. The anger in his heart could be imagined. He glared hatefully at Song Jiangwang, only to discover that Song Jiangwang's smiling eyes had narrowed into thin lines. Suddenly, King Yanluo's heart stirred. King Song Jiangwang had always been crafty. Could it be that he had some deep meaning or some scheme? After all, he had never done anything that was thankless. However, King Yanluo could not figure out what King Song Jiangwang could gain from this. King Yanluo secretly shook his head, thinking that he had become a bird that was startled by the twang of a bow these past few years. He actually had to think about the deeper meaning behind King Song Jiangwang's casual words or actions. Wasn't he making a mountain out of a molehill? He must be thinking too much. King Yanluo silently consoled himself. After a while, everyone turned their heads to look at King Yanluo. After all, he was the head of the 10 Yama kings in name. In the end, he still had to make the final decision. King Yanluo looked at everyone's eyes. Although he was extremely unwilling in his heart, he had no choice but to compromise. Because this was the only way. However, he didn't think that this was a good plan. It was simply Song Jiangwang blowing his own trumpet. King Yanluo coughed. The great hall was silent. Everyone knew that King Yanluo was about to speak. Although I don't think that this is a good plan, it's fine if some people are blowing their own trumpet. But since everyone thinks that this is a temporarily feasible plan, we can give it a try. After all, it's better than nothing. King Yanluo made the final decision, causing everyone to heave a sigh of relief. Everyone was afraid that King Yanluo would not agree because of his face. If this stalemate continued, it wouldn't be good for the others. In any case, they were not fighting for the position of the head of the 10 Yama kings. As long as they could maintain their current positions, it would be good enough. Song Jiangwang smiled as he looked at King Yanluo. He had long expected that King Yanluo would make this decision. After all, it was impossible for him to go against everyone's wishes and remain indifferent. If he did, his position would be more easily challenged and questioned. As for the best plan, that was only for him, Song Jiangwang. But for King Yanluo, that was the worst plan. Song Jiangwang's gaze towards King Yanluo became more and more thought-provoking. It was like an eagle looking at a little chick. However, he quickly retracted his gaze and didn't show any abnormality. Since we have decided to invite Dizong of Goguryeo out, who will be the one to persuade him? King Yanluo looked at Song Jiangwang after he finished speaking. Immediately, someone understood and said, since Song Jiangwang is the one who suggested this idea, he is naturally the most suitable person to go. Chapter 962. The fact that Song Jiangwang plotted against Dizong of Goguryeo was already a publicly acknowledged fact. In other words, he was Dizong of Goguryeo's enemy. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. King Yanluo suggested that Song Jiangwang invite Dizong of Goguryeo out of the mountain. It was probably to deliberately make things difficult for him, to make him suffer in front of Dizong of Goguryeo and make a fool of himself. Moreover, the 9 Hell was not an ordinary place. No one was willing to go there. This was not a good job to begin with. Naturally, he wanted to make Song Jiangwang suffer. However, King Yanluo's words gave Song Jiangwang no reason to refuse. Song Jiangwang revealed a hesitant expression, as if he was very unwilling. King Yanluo sneered in his heart. Who told you to go against me? Now you know how powerful I am. With just a few words, I can make you suffer. Even if you are resourceful, you are not as powerful as me. Seeing that the other kings of hell were looking at him, Song Jiangwang hesitated for a long time before letting out a long sigh. He seemed to be extremely unwilling as he said, "All right, I'll go." King Yanluo's eyes flashed with a sinister light as he said, "Song Jiangwang, from your tone, it seems that you are unwilling." "No." Song Jiangwang seemed to be in pain as he said. "That's good. We're all colleagues, so it's only right for us to do what we can for each other. If we were to make all sorts of excuses, wouldn't we become a laughingstock?" King Yanluo took the opportunity to reprimand them. Song Jiangwang's expression fluctuated. He did not refute and listened silently. King Yanluo teased a few more times before announcing the end of the meeting. Everyone was waiting for Song Jiangwang's triumphant return. After Song Jiangwang left King Yanluo's palace, a smile gradually appeared on his face as he muttered to himself, "King Yanluo, do you really think I hate this job? On the contrary, I purposely made a trip to the 9 Hell." However, King Yanluo could no longer hear these words. Otherwise, he would definitely shout that he had fallen into Song Jiangwang's trap again. In the vast wasteland, an afterimage quickly swept across the land. Tang Zheng had been searching in the ghost realm for a long time, but he still did not see a city. All of a sudden, a group of ghostly citizens appeared up ahead. They were clearly not ordinary ghostly citizens as they were all emanating an extremely sinister aura. They were riding on tall horses with weapons strapped to their backs. Wherever they passed, black energy would surge into the heavens, and a flag would materialize in mid-air, upon which a sinister skull could be seen. It's not a good idea for me to walk around aimlessly like this. Why don't I go up and ask around? Even if it doesn't work, I can just grab a person and force them to tell me the specific situation. Tang Zheng thought silently and strode towards the team. There were more than 10 people in this group, and the tall horses attracted Tang Zheng's attention. They were all wearing armor, but he could clearly see that under the armor, there were only skeletons. However, they were still moving freely, no different from ordinary horses. Tang Zheng knew that everything in the ghost world couldn't be measured by the common sense of the human world. After a few more glances, he didn't make a fuss. When he got closer, the horses let out a neigh and stopped. Immediately, everyone's eyes were focused on him. A loud roar sounded, and without any verbal communication, the group immediately turned their horses around and charged towards Tang Zheng. "Damn!" Tang Zheng shouted. What was going on? Could it be that his disguise was exposed? No, he was very confident in his disguise. But why didn't this team distinguish between right and wrong? They didn't even say a single word before directly attacking them. This was too strange. Tang Zheng originally wanted to treat them with courtesy and say a few words, but now it seemed that it was impossible to convince them with reason. Then, he could only rely on his fists. He couldn't just sit and wait for death, so he didn't care about exposing his identity. The first to charge was filled with an extremely sinister aura, and its iron hooves clanged on the ground. Suddenly, the horse raised its front leg and its iron hooves fell towards Tang Zheng's head. Tang Zheng lightly dodged to the side and dodged it. Bang bang! The iron hooves fell on the ground, smashing 2 pits in the hard ground. Whoosh! A glinting ghost head blade slashed towards Tang Zheng's head. This time, Tang Zheng didn't dodge. Instead, he grabbed the back of the blade and pulled, causing the other party to fall off the horse and fall heavily to the ground. However, the other party didn't seem to notice. With a fierce roar, his body emitted a black light, and a ferocious ghost head popped out from the hilt of the ghost head blade. It opened its mouth and bit towards the back of Tang Zheng's hand. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. He let go of the ghost head blade and grabbed the ghost head. The ghost head let out a shrill cry and tried to break free from Tang Zheng's hand, but found that it was futile. Bang! The ghost head exploded, turning into a cloud of yin energy that spread in all directions. Tang Zheng snatched the ghost head blade and slashed at the other party's head. With a poochie, the other party was split in half and turned into pitch-black yin energy. Tang Zheng frowned subconsciously. This team seemed a little strange. They were a little different from ordinary ghost messengers. It was as if the evil aura on their bodies was very strong. One could tell at a glance that they weren't good ghost messengers. Although one of their companions had died, the other party didn't panic. Instead, they attacked like a swarm of bees. More than a dozen ghost head blades slashed towards Tang Zheng's head, covering the sky and the sun. The gloomy yin energy made one's hair stand on end. Tang Zheng silently circulated his qi, urging the true qi to flow through his 8 extraordinary meridians. The gloomy feeling disappeared without a trace. Then, he lifted the ghost head and charged towards the other party. This was like a tiger charging into a pack of wolves. Although the wolves were fierce, they were still vulnerable in front of the tiger. After a few rounds, Tang Zheng had already killed several of them and completely gained the upper hand. However, these guys seemed to be unafraid of death and still charged forward without caring about anything. Tang Zheng didn't hold back. He only needed to leave one alive. Moreover, these guys were so unreasonable. Without saying a word, they directly attacked him. It seemed that they weren't good people. Killing them could be considered a good thing. After a while, Tang Zheng's opponent was left with only one who was still bitterly holding on. Tang Zheng's ghost head blade was chipped. It was obviously not a good thing. Clang! Another crisp sound. Tang Zheng's ghost head blade hit the other party's ghost head blade. Both blades broke into pieces. Tang Zheng's figure flashed and grabbed the other party's throat, making him unable to move. "Stop or I'll make you suffer until you die," Tang Zheng said lightly. "Ao." The other party cried out a few times. His eyes flashed with a dark light. He stared fiercely at Tang Jing. "Who are you? I'll kill you." Hee, this murderous aura hasn't disappeared yet. You're in my hands now. You have to listen to me. Tang Jing sneered. His hand tightened. Caw caw. A strange sound came from the other party's throat. His face immediately showed a hideous look of pain. Tang Zhang's face sank. Obediently answer my question. Where is this place? Which king of hell's jurisdiction is it? How do I get to the nearest city? Gga. The other party let out a sharp and strange laugh. You don't even know where this is and you dare to break in. This is the 9 Serenities Hell, the most dangerous place in the ghost world. 9 Serenities Hell. Tang Zhang's heart moved. The ghost that attacked the Tree of Life before also said that he came from the 9 Serenities. It was said that the 9 Serenities was the most mysterious place in the ghost world. He actually came here unknowingly. You don't know about the 9 Serenities Hell. Who are you? Who am I? You're not qualified to know. Answer my question first. How do I get to the nearest city? Tang Jing impatiently asked. As for the 9 Serenities Hell, he didn't care at all. The other party didn't answer. Instead, he roared, no matter who you are, only death awaits you in the 9 Serenities Hell. After saying that, a black light appeared all over his body. He turned into a black cloud of yin qi and enveloped Tang Jing. Huh, you have a lot of tricks. Tang Jing was slightly surprised, but didn't take it to heart. Although he was completely enveloped by the black yin qi, he pointed his finger. A purple true fire jumped out from his finger. Wherever the true fire went, the yin qi avoided it. Moreover, it let out shrill screams. True fire can not only be used to refine pills, but also to control enemies, especially against ghosts like you. Tang Zhang's finger pointed anxiously. Balls of flames erupted from his finger. In an instant, the yin qi was wrapped in the true fire. It was like refining pills, and the yin qi was like medicinal herbs. After a while, the yin qi disappeared. Tang Jing shook his head and said regretfully, the last captive is dead. Now there's no one to ask. Well, I'll continue to move forward. I'd like to see what kind of place the 9 Serenities Hell is. As the saying goes, those who don't know don't do it. He only knew a little about the 9 Serenities Hell. If he really knew the real horror of the 9 Serenities Hell, he would probably turn around and leave directly. Then, none of this would have happened. The endless wasteland stretched as far as the eye could see. He walked for a while. In the distance, he saw a bright light. The light meant that there were other people from the ghost world. The faint blue light illuminated the outline in the distance. It seemed to be a small village. There were a few low houses scattered around. Tang Zhang had seen the prosperity of the big cities in the ghost world. When he saw this small village, he couldn't help but shake his head. It seemed that the gap between the rich and the poor existed everywhere. This 9 Serenities Hell was probably the slum of the ghost world. It must be very famous. In such a place, it was common sense for people to stay away from it. Tang Jing didn't take it to heart. He continued to disguise himself as a ghost citizen and swaggered into the village. The village was quiet. There wasn't a single ghost citizen. He shook his head secretly. This silence was a little strange. However, he was bold. He didn't take it to heart. He walked from the beginning of the village to the end, chasing after the light. Finally, he arrived in front of the light. The faint blue light was suspended in midair. As if it had a magical power, it firmly attracted Tang Zhang's attention. When he got closer, the light suddenly moved and floated away. Tang Jing intuitively felt that there must be something wrong with the light. So, he quickly prepared to intercept it and investigate. However, the faster he went, the faster the light went. After chasing for a while, he found that he was still 1 meter away from the light. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reduce the distance. In addition, he found himself standing at the beginning of the village again. It was the place where he came in. Chapter 963. Tang Jing stopped, and the blue light also stopped, floating in the air in front of him. Looking around, there was no change at all. It was exactly the same as when he first entered the village. This was indeed the entrance of the village. He did not know why he returned to the original place. Tang Jing, you encountered a ghost wall. Qi Yu's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Ghost wall. Yes, it's very common to encounter a ghost wall in the ghost realm, but this ghost wall is different from the usual ghost wall. The one here is even more strange. This is a dead end, but there is also a way to break the situation, and that is the light. You can only catch that light, and maybe you can get out of here. Qi Yu said. In addition, there is one thing we forgot to remind you. The 9 Nether Hell is the most mysterious and dangerous place in the ghost realm. We are not members of the ghost realm, so we only know a little about its dangers. Let me remind you, when you encounter danger, don't blame us for not reminding you. The inner demon's voice also sounded. Tang Jing frowned. Although the two of them said it was serious, their words were not necessarily trustworthy. Tang Jing chose to ignore them, but the vigilance in his heart increased a little. Anyway, this trip to the ghost realm was not a good one, and it was normal to have danger. Since the ghost came from the 9 Nether Hell, and was so powerful, would there be any discovery in the 9 Nether Hell? So, after thinking for a while, he decided to stay. Is there any way to catch this light? Tang Jing asked. After a moment of silence, Qi Yu said, the things in the ghost realm are extraordinary, and can't be judged by common sense. As for the specific method, I can't think of it at the moment. Have you never been to the ghost realm before? Tang Jing asked speechlessly. Why would I come to the ghost realm? Moreover, at that time, the ghost realm was just a small world. What was the point of coming here? Qi Yu asked. Tang Jing rolled his eyes helplessly. Okay, you win. He calmed down and did not continue to move forward, but stared at the light. Suddenly, his mind moved, and the war spirit sword flashed out, cutting across the sky. Puff! Without any fancy moves, the war soul sword struck the light, causing it to explode, turning into specks of blue light, as if they were stars in the sky. However, these rays of light quickly gathered together and returned to normal. Ha! Tang Jing was surprised. This light was actually not afraid of the war soul sword's attack. What should he do now? Tang Jing thought hard, his gaze gradually moving to the side. With a thought, the war soul sword attacked once again, and wherever it passed, those were like tofu. All of them were cut into pieces, and finally turned into ruins, collapsing with a loud bang. There wasn't a single ghostly inhabitant in these houses, and they appeared even more lifeless after being reduced to rubble. With a tap of his foot, he immediately rushed into the ruins and swept across, leaving the ruins far behind him. He ran madly, but a moment later, he found himself standing at the entrance of the village again. Everything was as good as before, and even the details of the houses were unchanged. He had no choice but to stop because he knew that his attempt to break out had failed. This ghostly labyrinth was like a vicious circle. No matter how he tried to break out, he would always return to the starting point. He stomped his foot hatefully, and a large pit appeared under his feet. In the end, he had no choice but to focus his gaze on the light. He was afraid that the crux of all this was here. When he broke out just now, this light had always been behind him. I don't believe that I can't catch you. Tang Jing became serious. For symbols venerable, lend me a hand. Boom! With a loud bang, the 4 symbols venerable appeared out of thin air. When his feet landed on the ground, the earth trembled a few times. Move! With a loud shout, the four symbols venerable moved together with him, pouncing towards the light at the same time. The light seemed to have a consciousness, and knew that danger was approaching, so it hurriedly dodged to the side. Its speed was extremely fast, and it easily dodged Tang Zhang's hand. However, the four symbols venerable was already waiting for it on the other side. Seeing that the four symbols venerable was about to catch it, it actually stopped halfway, changed direction, and flew to the other side. This repeated again and again. Tang Zhang and the four symbols venerable chased after it, but they were still unable to catch the light. However, Tang Zhang was meticulous and clever, and gradually discovered the light's movement pattern. Suddenly, the light dodged the four symbols venerable's hand again, and flew to the side. In a flash, Tang Zhang moved with lightning speed, and actually arrived at the light's escape route first. He stretched out his hand and caught the light in his hand. He was about to laugh happily when suddenly, his brows furrowed, and he screamed in pain. The light flashed, and actually disappeared into Tang Zhang's palm. At the same time, an extremely cold aura spread from his palm to his entire body. In an instant, his body was frozen stiff, and a layer of ice slowly condensed on the surface of his body. He watched helplessly as he turned into a large block of ice, unable to move. Through the snow-white layer of ice, he could still see everything in front of him become illusory. That gloomy and cold aura made his true chi feel as if it was about to be frozen. Moreover, it followed along his meridians and arrived at his sifu. His nascent soul emitted a purple light, and that gloomy and cold aura actually directly rushed towards his nascent soul. Yuanying's entire body blossomed with a boundless light, and this aura was kept at bay. However, the cold aura was like a poisonous snake, and did not stop there. Instead, it looked around as if Yuanying was a tempting delicacy. Although Tang Zhang could not move, his consciousness was still very clear. He desperately urged his inner chi, but he discovered that he was powerless, and his inner chi seemed to have been frozen. How could this be? Why is this ball of light so evil? He was extremely anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Shiyu, inner demons, quickly think of a way. Don't tell me you want to just watch as you die. Tang Zhang was quick-witted, and hurriedly asked these two for help. If I had a way, why would I take so long to tell you? Shiyu faintly said. The inner demon sighed and said, I have always thought that I was invincible, but today I understand that everything in this world was too simple. There are still many things in this world that I am not capable of. The ghost realm was another world, and its mysteries were far more complicated than they had imagined. For a time, these two ancient powerhouses had a headache. In fact, this could also be understood. Everything was evolving and developing. At that time, although the two of them were supreme powerhouses, everything was changing. The ghost realm changed from a small world to a large world, and the mysteries that evolved over the years were far from what they could completely understand. Hearing this, Tang Zhang secretly rolled his eyes. These two guys usually boasted about how powerful they were, but when it came to this, they actually did not have a single useful method. This really angered him to death. If I die, you two won't be able to get any benefits. Tang Zhang said without any good feelings. Of course we don't want you to die. This will not benefit us at all. Shiyu and the inner demons quickly said, but we really don't have a way. You are so smart, think about it again. Now you know how to say that I am smart. Tang Zhang angrily muttered. Humph, I can only rely on myself. Others are unreliable. In an instant, his body was completely stiff, no different from an ice sculpture. What made him even more terrified was that this cold aura was gradually freezing the Yuanying. The purple light emitted by the Yuanying had weakened a lot. Moreover, there was no way for the true chi to be produced from the Yuanying. Even if he had the divine power to protect his body, there was nothing he could do. When the Yuanying was finally frozen, Tang Zheng's consciousness was still clear. He felt extremely desolate. He had spent so much effort chasing and intercepting this light, but after catching it, he actually ended up in this situation. He did not know how much time had passed, but he was on the verge of despair. This kind of torment was definitely not something an ordinary person could endure. Because, although one's consciousness was clear, they could not move. This was worse than death. The mountain was at the end of the river, but there was always a village at the end of the tunnel. When he was on the verge of despair, a warm feeling slowly emerged from his body. This warm feeling was born from his 9th major meridian. Moreover, it was like a spark starting a prairie fire, spreading through his 8 extraordinary meridians. Unexpectedly, his body gradually became warmer. Moreover, this warm feeling directly reached his Zifu, trying to rescue the Yuanying. Suddenly, that cold aura appeared again, intertwining with the warm feeling, both trying to destroy the other. After experiencing an extremely difficult battle, the cold aura was actually destroyed by the warm feeling. Yuanying thawed, and just like the repetition of all things, the true qi flowed, the warm feeling merged into each of his pores, and the warm feeling turned into heat. Not long after, he felt as if he was in a furnace. Every cell in his body seemed to be burning, and a scorching hot feeling filled every inch of his body. He let out a scream, but he suddenly realized that he could actually make a sound, so naturally, he could move. Sure enough, he could move freely. He did not have time to be surprised, because the heat was getting stronger and stronger, as if it was going to melt him. In such a short period of time, one cold and one hot, the 2 worlds of ice and fire, he was suffering. Oh no, that warm feeling seems to be the most hidden pure yang energy in my body. After my pure yang energy was neutralized by the pure yin energy, the root has been suppressed by me. But just now, that cold aura seemed to have touched the pure yang energy, so it rose up and fought back. Although he guessed this point, he found that the situation was not much better than before. Because, once the pure yang energy broke out, he would face the danger of exploding and dying. This was the ghost realm. Where could he find someone to balance the yin and yang energy to suppress the pure yang energy? His cheeks were red, his body emitted green smoke, and his head felt like it was going to explode. But before he could think of a solution, he found that the situation around him had completely changed. Those villages disappeared, and the surroundings became bright as fire. Chapter 964. There was a huge pit in front of him. It was almost impossible to see the end of it. He stood at the edge of the pit as the cold wind howled. As for the village, there was no trace of it. However, he didn't have time to carefully observe all of this because his body seemed to be boiling. Although the pure yang energy had eliminated the cold aura, the after-effects were not small. There were no other women here, only him. He had no way to absorb the pure yin energy to reach the realm of yin and yang harmony. This was really a torment. The pure yang energy has exploded. Chiyu, do you have a way to solve this urgent problem? Tang Zheng asked. I still need to think about this. TSK, Chiyu, stop pretending. What can you do? The inner demon scoffed. Chiyu ignored them. After a while, he cried out in surprise, I have a way. It's a secret technique of the Ninely tribe, but I can only use it. What do you mean? Tang Zheng asked suspiciously. In other words, I have to temporarily control your body before I can use this secret technique to temporarily suppress the pure yang energy in your body. Tang Zheng's head thumped. This was not a small matter. If Chiyu controlled his body, would he still have a chance to regain the initiative? What if he was completely replaced by Chiyu from then on? Tang Zheng had always been on guard against these 2 ancient experts. After hearing this decision, the first thing he thought of was this, so he didn't rush to answer. Seeing that he didn't answer for a long time, Chiyu quickly said, Tang Zheng, your current situation is very dangerous. This is the only way to survive. Young man, don't listen to him. This person is too cunning. His words can't be trusted. You have to think carefully. If he controls your body, will he take the initiative to return the initiative? At that time, you will no longer exist and the owner of this body will be him. Tang Jing didn't make a decision. The inner demons impatiently persuaded him. He really couldn't help but worry. After all, he had to guard against people. Moreover, he knew how cunning Qi Yu was. If he let him succeed, then he would have no chance to turn the tables. Inner demons, what time is it now? You still want to cause trouble. If Tang Zheng loses the best opportunity and finally explodes, then both of us will die. Qi Yu angrily said. The inner demons coldly smiled and said, if it's really so unlucky, then I'll accept it. I will live and die with the young man. I have no regrets. But if I let you take the initiative, then I won't even have a place to cry. Qi Yu gnashed his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do. He could only continue to persuade, Tang Jing, don't listen to the inner demon's nonsense. He's deliberately causing trouble. If we lose the best opportunity, then it'll be too late for regrets. Although Tang Zhang's body was uncomfortable, as if it was about to explode, he still decided not to risk letting Qi Yu control his body. He asked, can't you just tell me the secret method? I can use it according to the method. Only I can do it. You can't use this spell. Qi Yu explained. Tang Jing coldly snorted, if that's the case, then forgive me for not being able to comply. I've dealt with pure yang energy for so long, I don't believe that I'll really explode and die this time. He thought for a long time and decided to fight. Besides, he also wanted to test the limits of pure yang energy. In the past, whenever there was a crisis of pure yang energy erupting, he would immediately find a way to absorb pure yin energy. This time, he couldn't absorb it, so he wanted to see how long he could resist. Because he might face this kind of danger in the future, it might be beneficial to test it in advance. Besides, Qi Yu's words were not very trustworthy. What kind of spell could only be used by him and no one else? Moreover, it was so mysterious that he really couldn't trust it 100%. At worst, when he really couldn't hold on, then he would use Qi Yu's method. At least he could hold on for the time being. Seeing that Tang Jing didn't listen to his advice, Qi Yu was flustered and exasperated. Tang Jing, you're delaying yourself, do you know that? Good intentions are treated as ill intent. You don't have to worry about that. Tang Jing resisted the discomfort and said lightly. Young man, good job, that's what a man should do. Besides, Qi Yu isn't a good person. The inner demons were excited. Whether Qi Yu had the intention to replace him or not, the inner demons were unwilling to take this unknown risk. Qi Yu sighed for a long time, powerless, and sighed, if that's the case, then it's up to you. However, you've already broken the ghost labyrinth, it seems that the light is the key. Once you defeat it, all the illusions will naturally end. Tang Jing nodded and said, yes, everything was so real, I really didn't think it was an illusion. No wonder it could trap me so strangely. Qi Yu paused and muttered, I just don't know who in the ghost realm set up this ghost labyrinth, it's really strange. Qi Yu sighed. Tang Jing shook his head and said, no matter who set up this ghost labyrinth, this person must be a very powerful person. I have a premonition that things are far more complicated than we thought. This means that the 9 Serenities hell is more complicated than I thought. What, are you preparing to leave? Tang Zheng's expression was mysterious, and he said with a smile that wasn't a smile, why would I leave? Since it's so mysterious, then I have to find out more. The inner demons praised, a man should be a bit braver. Qi Yu, do you think everyone is as cowardly as you, a coward? I'm cowardly. Qi Yu's voice suddenly rose a few notches, and he said angrily, If I, Chiyu, am a coward, then there are no brave people in this world. Tang Jing didn't pay attention to the two's battle of words. He put away the 4 symbols venerables and glanced into the pit. The pit was shrouded in a layer of black fog, and he couldn't see the situation inside. Snap! With a snap of his fingers, a ball of purple true fire emerged from his fingertips. The purple light didn't shine too far, and only faintly illuminated the area around him. However, he didn't hesitate and still took a step forward, walking into the large pit. There was a spiral staircase in the large pit, and he walked down it very slowly. After all, he was worried about missing a step and falling down. That would be terrible. There was black fog all around him, and it was as thick as water vapor, shrouding his body. The black fog was formed by a large amount of yin qi, and it was incomparably dark. Tang Jing relied on the light of the true fire to move forward step by step, gradually passing through the black fog. Suddenly, there seemed to be a faint light coming from below. He felt a chill in his heart. Now, he had a subconscious vigilance towards light, and it was completely because of the light just now that he was scared out of his wits. Don't worry, even if it's a ghost wall again, you have experience, and you can still easily get out of it. The inner demons comforted. Tang Jing secretly nodded, and what they said made sense. He walked down the stairs, and the light became brighter and brighter. There was actually another world under this black fog. However, he could clearly feel that the yin qi below seemed to be different, and there was a lot more ferocious in it. No wonder the 9 Serenities hell is called a fierce place. This kind of ferocious yin qi invading the body is probably not a small matter for the residents of the world of spirits and souls. It will definitely have a serious impact on them. However, although the yin qi was ferocious, Tang Zheng's body was surging with pure yang energy, and the yin qi couldn't hurt him at all. However, because of this, his disguise was completely gone. There was no yin qi on his body at all, and he was full of the breath of a living person. Ah! Suddenly, a mournful scream came from the bottom of the pit. The scream was so mournful that it made people feel as if they were in the same situation. Tang Zheng was the first to be alert, and he was 120% alert. However, he was now multitasking. While he was trying to suppress the pure yang energy, he was secretly observing the situation below. This big pit was funnel-shaped, and the lower he went, the smaller it became. Moreover, there were many big holes in the stone wall, and light came out from many of the holes. It seemed that the mournful scream also came from the holes. What's in there? He couldn't help but be curious. Let's go and see. The inner demons were also very curious. That's what I was thinking. Tang Jing moved forward cautiously, and finally came to a stone cave. He looked up, and everything in the stone cave entered his eyes. He opened his mouth wide, and a scream almost jumped out from his throat. Because the scene inside was something he had never imagined. A black pot with a diameter of dozens of meters was placed in the middle of the stone cave. Gurgling bubbles were churning in the pot, and hot steam came out of the pot and rose straight up. There were barbs hanging on the top of the stone cave, and each hook had a ghost hanging on it. The ghosts were trembling and struggling, but it was useless. There were also many ferocious guys standing around the big pot. These guys obviously had cultivation, but their strength was not high. They were only ghost messengers and ghost generals. In the eyes of Tang Jing, they were not worth mentioning. They let out ferocious laughter, and with a command, the barbs slowly fell down. Plop! A few ghosts fell into the black cauldron at once. The ghosts immediately began to struggle, like fish in water, splashing up waves after waves. But these waves were not water, but boiling oil. Boiling oil. This word immediately came to Tang Zhang's mind. This was a kind of legend in the human world. It was said that in the ghost world, there was a kind of torture called boiling oil. He had not seen it before, so he subconsciously thought that it was a lie. But now that he saw it, he finally understood that he was wrong. This was real, and they were actually putting ghosts into boiling oil to fry. Looking at the ghosts wrapped in boiling oil, after a while, those ghosts became even more ferocious and ugly. Many of their faces became pockmarked, and even half of their faces were gone. Even someone as bold as Tang Jing felt his heart tremble as he watched. It was hard for him to imagine what kind of pain it was. On the other hand, those ghost messengers were gloating, dancing and dancing as if this was a great joy. A chill went straight to his heart, causing him to immediately frown. He was about to turn around, unwilling to see such a horrible scene. Chapter 965. The scream immediately attracted the attention of the others. All of the ghost messengers turned their heads and locked onto the uninvited guest, Tang Jing. A living person. Tang Jing's life aura was too strong, the other party could tell at a glance and cried out in alarm. However, they were not afraid, instead their eyes lit up as they rushed towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing knew that he could not avoid them, so with a slash of the battle soul in his hand, the ghost messengers at the front were directly split into two, but the other ghost messengers still rushed over without fear, exactly the same as what Tang Jing encountered before. Strange, the ghost messengers of this hell don't seem to be afraid of death. He didn't hold back in the slightest. After all, he had clearly seen their vicious methods just now. He didn't want to roll in that pot of oil. Puff puff puff. Sword after sword, like cutting radishes, in a short while, the only one left was the ghost general with the highest cultivation. This guy held a ghost head blade and once again launched a charge without any regard for his life. Die! Tang Jing roared, the battle soul chopped off his two arms, but he actually opened his mouth and bit towards Tang Jing's neck. Tang Jing speechlessly rolled his eyes. Was this guy a dog? Without his hands, he actually used this method. But how could he hurt him? His large hand grabbed the ghost general. No matter how the other party struggled, it was futile, he could not escape from Tang Jing's hands. Tell me, who is in charge here? He had no clue, and did not want to tangle with these small fries, so he prepared to find the leader here. To catch bandits, catch the leader, it could avoid a lot of unnecessary time. The ghost general roared and angrily said, the Nine Netherworld is a land without a master, it is not responsible to anyone. Tang Jing frowned and said, don't tell me you are in charge of your own formation. The ghost general did not answer, but fiercely stared at Tang Jing and said, you are a living person, how did you survive in the ghost realm? You don't have to worry about that. I've never seen a living person in the ghost realm. You will be very popular, ha ha ha. The ghost general's eyes burst out with light as he strangely laughed. Tang Jing was taken aback and asked, what do you mean? Heh heh, the taste of a living person. We have never tasted it before. It must be very delicious. After saying that, the ghost general licked his lips. It was as though Tang Jing was a delicacy. Tang Jing felt a chill run down his spine. Did these ghosts want to eat humans? We've long been sick of the taste of ghosts, so a change of taste is definitely a happy thing. The ghost general happily said. Holy sh*t. You're a freak. You're a ghost cultivator, yet you're eating ghosts. You're eating your own kind, you know. Tang Jing could not help but curse. You can increase your strength by eating ghosts, don't you know? Ha, this is such a wonderful thing. You're a living person, so you don't know. The ghost general was not ashamed, but was instead proud. Tang Jing shuddered. These guys in the Nine Secluded Hell were full of strange smell. They were completely different from other places and could not be judged with common sense. Humph, you want to eat me? You don't have the strength. Yes, I don't have the strength, but do you know how many ghosts there are here? How many? I don't know, because there are too many. This is the Nine Secluded Hell's 18 layers of hell. the most sinister and terrifying place in the ghost realm. You actually broke through the ghost wall laid down by the Dzong of Goguryeo. Your strength is not bad, but you're still seeking death. The ghost general eerily laughed. That ghost wall was laid down by the Dzong of Goguryeo. Who is the Dzong of Goguryeo? Why did he lay down the ghost wall? When Tang Zheng heard this new name, he was very interested. He asked Qi Yu and the inner demons in his heart, but they had never heard of it. Therefore, Tang Zheng was even more interested. The Dzong of Goguryeo is a loathsome guy. None of us in the 9 secluded hell like him. As for the ghost wall, that's his conspiracy. In order to prevent us from going to the outside world, and to prevent the outside world from entering the 18 layers of hell, he wants to cut off the source of our 18 layers of hell. The ghost general's eyes showed anger and disgust. Tang Zheng's head moved. If this guy was so loathsome, then it could prove that the Dzong of Goguryeo was good. After all, most of the people who were loathed by bad people were good people. However, this Dzong of Goguryeo could lay down such a powerful ghost wall, indicating that his strength was certainly not ordinary. In addition, this ghost wall was equivalent to a barrier, preventing the 18 layers of hell from contacting the outside world, preventing these ruthless ghosts from going to the outside world to make trouble. Then why did I encounter guys similar to you outside? Humph, when the Dzong of Goguryeo laid down the ghost wall, it did not include 100% of the ghosts of the 9 secluded hell. The most important thing was the ghosts of the 18 layers of hell, so it's not surprising that there are other ghosts outside. The ghost general stared at Tang Zheng like he was looking at an idiot, as if to say, such a simple question, you don't even know, really shameful. Tang Zheng did not care, at least this answer answered a lot of his questions. His mind moved, and he continued to ask, don't you boast that you're very powerful? Since you all hate him, why don't you deal with him? The ghost general's eyes burst out with resentment, and he fiercely said, who doesn't want to deal with him? But his strength is really too strong, and no one is his opponent, so he can do whatever he wants in the 9 secluded hell. Tang Zheng was shocked. In the 18 layers of hell there were certainly other powerful ghosts, but they were unexpectedly unable to do anything to the Dzong of Goguryeo. In the end, how strong was his strength, Tang Zheng could not imagine. You said he's doing whatever he wants, then what is he doing? The ghost general's voice came to an abrupt stop, and he stared straight at Tang Zheng, and suddenly said, are you trying to trick me? Stop dreaming. Tang Zheng helplessly rolled his eyes. This guy actually reacted. It seems that it is impossible to trick him. You trespassed into the 18 layers of hell, you will undoubtedly die. Not only will your body be eaten, even your soul will be divided up by us. Listening to his sinister laughter, Tang Zheng helplessly said, since you are not willing to speak, then I can't let you stay. Boom! A flame soared into the sky, and the ghost general was immediately wrapped in the true fire, and in the blink of an eye he disappeared. Tang Zheng looked at the big pot of oil, and then turned around and walked out of the cave. Walking down the stairs, another scream came from the cave, and with the help of the light, Tang Zheng vaguely saw a ghost messenger pulling out a ghost's tongue. The tongue was pulled out from the throat, and the ghost burst out with a mournful scream. Tang Zheng could not bear to see this soul-stirring scene, and took a detour. This was the 18 layers of hell, and he would not be merciful enough to save these ghosts. Now he had a target, and that was the Dzong of Goguryeo. Finding him may lead to an unexpected discovery. The enemy of an enemy is a friend, and at least the Dzong of Goguryeo was the enemy of these ghost messengers, so he wanted to meet the Dzong of Goguryeo. The more he walked down, the more gloomy and terrifying Tang Zheng felt. Although his pure yang energy had already erupted, and his entire body felt like it was on fire, there was still a cold feeling enveloping him. He tasted the feeling of ice and fire, cold on the outside and hot on the inside. It was truly torturous. He walked down another step, and suddenly, a group of ghost messengers came from the side of the corridor, and the two sides immediately met face to face. Along the way, he had been very careful, but now he was still discovered, and immediately, it was like a drop of water falling into a pot of oil, directly boiling. A living person. A sharp cry of surprise rang out, and then, as if they had seen a supreme delicacy, the group of ghost messengers shouted, "Catch him!" So. One by one, the ghost messengers charged forward without any regard for their lives. Tang Jing helplessly shook his head, and now that he had not found the Dizang of Goguryeo, and instead met this group of people, it seemed that a fierce battle was inevitable. Moreover, this was outside, and would definitely attract other people. Therefore, he did not hold back, and directly went all out. The war soul sword drew a line in the air, and fiercely slashed down, and a dozen or so ghost messengers were cut in half by the sword light that fell from the sky, screaming miserably as they fell outside. Tang Zheng's clean and efficient attack did not intimidate the other party, and made them feel afraid. Instead, it made them feel as if they had been injected with chicken blood, and they cheered, "What a powerful living person, after eating, my strength will definitely increase greatly." Tang Jing felt a wave of disgust. This group of despicable fellows still want to eat him to increase their strength, then I'll kill you all first. He took the initiative to attack, and the war soul sword shone brightly, instantly killing all the weaker ghost messengers, and the remaining guy was the strongest ghost marshal. The ghost marshal opened his palm, and a small flag slowly grew in his palm. He grabbed the flagpole and shook it fiercely. Whoosh whoosh. A cold wind blew, and Tang Jing felt the surrounding yin qi quickly gathering towards him, and his soul trembled, as if it was about to leave him. Tang Jing had the experience of fighting with Yama's seal, and immediately realized that this flag was definitely a treasure that specialized in dealing with souls, and could not be underestimated. I will first use the soul beckoning flag to collect your soul. With your cultivation being so strong, your soul and body must be very delicious. The ghost marshal laughed. Soul beckoning flag. Tang Zheng's heart moved. It was indeed the same as what he had guessed. Then he could not delay, and had to cut the Gordian knot. Thus, he roared and leaped up, descending from the sky, fiercely slashing at the ghost marshal. The ghost marshal's entire body released a black light, and with a wave of his hand, the soul beckoning flag expanded in the wind, and finally turned into a large flag. On the flag were complicated patterns that flickered with a strange light. The flag fluttered, and an invisible force spread out. Tang Zheng's soul trembled, as if it was about to leave his body. He was shocked, and immediately focused his mind. Operating his mysterious technique, he slashed down without any distractions. Bang! The war soul sword landed on the soul beckoning flag, and with a fupuchit sound, the soul beckoning flag broke. The ghost marshal anxiously rolled on the ground, dodging the war soul sword. Looking at the broken soul beckoning flag in his hand, he screamed, "Who exactly are you? Why are you so powerful?" Tang Zheng's cultivation surpassed his, so his soul beckoning flag did not cause any fatal damage to him, nor did it attract his soul out. Tang Jing did not reply. He raised the war soul sword and was about to give his opponent a fatal blow. Suddenly, roar roar roar. Roars came from all directions, reverberating in the air, layer by layer, like a clap of thunder exploding in Tang Zhang's ears. His pupils constricted as he thought to himself, "Not good." Chapter 966. Amidst the roars, a group of shadows arrived in the blink of an eye and surrounded Tang Zhang so tightly that not even a drop of water could pass through. Looking up, there were countless ghost messengers of various heights. Moreover, almost all of them were ghost generals and ghost marshals. Evidently, even ordinary ghost messengers couldn't squeeze in. Tang Zhang's expression didn't change. He suppressed the waves in his heart and calmly looked at them. A living person. They all cried out in surprise and stared at Tang Zhang with shining eyes. Some even subconsciously licked the corners of their mouths and seemed to be on the verge of drooling. None of these fellows in hell are normal. They all want to eat me. Am I that popular? Tang Jing mumbled unhappily. Catch him. With a loud roar, everyone rushed over and surrounded him from the front and back. Tang Jing stabbed rapidly with his sword. Pew, 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 the guy at the front immediately fell to the ground. They were all stabbed in the same place. From this, one could see how accurate Tang Jing's attacks were. Small wounds were enough to end their lives. His skills are so strong. Everyone, let's work harder. This is an extremely beautiful delicacy. After eating him, our skills will definitely increase greatly. The team shouted excitedly. Tang Jing smiled wryly, but his attacks were increasingly clean and ruthless. Pew, pew, pew. A few more heads flew up and died on the spot. Tang Jing was caught in a chaotic battle. There were fierce attacks in front, left, and right. Which one was stronger? Reading on the phone, he was in dire straits and appeared to be in a somewhat sorry state. It wasn't that his skills were inferior to these guys, but that there were too many of them. Even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he couldn't handle them all. This won't do. This can't go on. Tang Jing was anxious. With a single thought, the 4 symbols venerable appeared and swept his giant arms toward the enemies. Bang, 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 only the side of the pit near the wall had a staircase spiraling down. There was no foothold anywhere else, so those who were swept by the 4 symbols venerable fell down one after another. Moreover, the 4 symbols venerable was extraordinarily strong. Many of those who were swept by its arms died with their heads exploding. This flight of stairs was already very narrow to begin with, and with the presence of the 4 symbols venerable, it took up most of the space. It lifted its leg and stomped down viciously, trampling ghost generals into pieces. The appearance of the 4 symbols venerable attracted most of the attacks for Tang Jing. It was incomparably ferocious, while Tang Jing was ingenious. The two of them cooperated seamlessly. Stop them. Seeing this scene, the other party was also shocked, because they never thought that this would happen. The other party was at least a ghost general, so after experiencing the initial panic, their explosive combat power was also very shocking. Several ghost generals and ghost marshals leaped into the air and charged towards Tang Jing and the 4 symbols venerable. However, they were mostly targeting the 4 symbols reverend. Obviously, they were very clear that the battle prowess of the 4 symbols venerable was stronger. As long as they could deal with this colossus, then Tang Jing would be a piece of cake. Wave after wave of powerful attacks landed on the 4 symbols venerable, causing sparks to fly everywhere. However, the 4 symbols venerable remained completely unscathed. Looking at this scene, their eyes instantly widened. What exactly was this big guy? Why was it invulnerable to swords and spears? Tang Jing heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the 4 symbols venerable held the fort, then the pressure on him would be greatly reduced. War soul in his hand exploded with a resplendent light. Wind rises and clouds surge, sword breaks 1,000 caddies, lightning fires sword, heaven falls and earth rends, return to simplicity, and transcendent flying immortal. Each of the incomparably fierce transcendent flying immortal swordsmanship was displayed without restraint, causing the enemy to suffer a crushing defeat. I'll take you on. Suddenly, an angry roar rang out, and the enemies in front of him automatically parted, revealing a passage. A guy walked over with steady steps, taking large strides like a meteor. He was tall and burly, half a body taller than the other ghost marshals. At a glance, one could tell that he was not a good person. Moreover, he dragged a long chain in his hand, which made clanking sounds as it rubbed against the ground. Tang Jing's heart skipped a beat. He could clearly feel that the other party's strength was higher than the ghost marshals. This was a ghost king that was even more powerful than the ghost marshals. Furthermore, he was a ghost king that often fought in the 18 levels of hell. Tang Jing did not retreat. Instead, he looked at him with a burning gaze. He knew that he had met a strong opponent. Whoosh! The Ghost King made the first move. With a flick of his wrist, the chain flew up from the ground and flew towards Tang Jing. Clang! Tang Jing anxiously raised his sword to block. Sparks blossomed in the air. Then, Tang Jing tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and flew over horizontally. A sword came from the west, the heaven-flying immortal. The war soul sword exploded with an extremely large amount of energy, and the space in front of the Ghost King seemed to be split into two. The Ghost King glared angrily and let out a low roar. The long chain seemed to have eyes as it turned in the air and flew towards Tang Jing's back like a poisonous snake. Tang Jing did not even turn his head as he swung his sword backwards. The sound of something not being hit rang out. His heart trembled. This attack had actually missed. He thought to himself that something was wrong. As expected, he immediately felt his entire body tighten. The long chain had actually trapped him. In that instant, he felt as if his soul had been bound. This long chain was most likely a soul magic treasure. He struggled fiercely, but to no avail. Boom! A ball of dark blue flames rose from the long chain and quickly spread. The entire long chain was surrounded by flames, and the flames quickly spread towards Tang Jing's body. In an instant, he had turned into a flaming man. The strange thing was that the flames were not hot. Instead, it was cold to the bone, causing one's teeth to chatter uncontrollably. The pure yang energy in Tang Jing's body was already restless, but after being stimulated by this cold and gloomy aura, it actually calmed down a little. Tang Jing was shocked. Could it be that there was purine energy in this cold and gloomy aura? Most of the purine energy only existed in the human body, such as women. Although yin qi and purine energy were both yin, they were completely different. Therefore, Tang Jing found that there was purine energy in this long chain. He could not help but be surprised. He did not have time to delve into it. His heartstrings suddenly trembled, and his soul seemed to be squeezed, shrinking inward little by little. However, his body was not squeezed. His gaze pierced through the strange flames and immediately locked onto the long chain. He thought to himself, this long chain is a soul-type magic treasure, but it's very different from the soul-summoning chess from before. It doesn't attack by extracting the opponent's soul. Instead, it directly crushes the soul within the opponent's body. This can also kill people. He could not help but be secretly speechless. The opponent's means were strange and unexpected. Clearly experiencing the pressure on his soul, Tang Jing opened his throat and let out a cry of pain, but he could not break free from the long chain. Moreover, he did not want to break free from the long chain immediately, because he could absorb the purine energy from it to balance the pure yang energy in his body. Otherwise, if he could not find any other purine energy in this ghost realm, then he would eventually be in danger of exploding and dying. Therefore, he was playing a dangerous game, seeking a balance between the purine energy and the soul attack. If the soul attack reached a limit, he would certainly have to give up the purine energy and find a way to escape. Looking at Tang Jing screaming, the Ghost King laughed proudly. In this 18 layers of hell, you still want to escape from my soul-binding chain. You are really wishful thinking. This soul-binding chain was refined by me using the souls of 999 female ghosts. It is specially used to bind souls. 999 female ghosts. Tang Jing's heartstrings trembled. It was really a vicious magic treasure, and the opponent was really too insidious to use this method to refine a magic treasure. As for the purine energy on it, Tang Jing could guess a thing or two. It was probably carried by these female ghosts. It was just that the purine energy of female ghosts was very rare, and there was so much purine energy accumulated because there was enough of them. Since I have absorbed this purine energy, then I should avenge those 999 female ghosts and kill this guy. Tang Jing made up his mind. Boom! Seeing that Tang Jing was trapped, the four symbols venerable swept away the enemy in front of him with a move of total annihilation, then charged at Tang Jing in an attempt to save him. Seeing this, the Ghost King waved his hand and said, "Stop it." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One by one, the ghost generals and ghost commanders charged at the four symbols venerable without any regard for their lives. The four symbols venerable had no choice but to stop and engage in a fierce battle with these guys. Venerable four symbols, don't worry. They can't hurt me for the time being. With a thought, Tang Jing silently transmitted a message to the four symbols venerable. The four symbols venerable's artifact spirit had long since awakened, so he could communicate with Tang Jing without any obstruction. Hearing his words, the four symbols venerable's battle weakened a little, and he did not rush over in a hurry. Seeing this, the Ghost King thought that the four symbols venerable was not strong enough and had been successfully stopped. Immediately, he was overjoyed, and said, "Let's see how you resist now. Come, let me eat you. It's your honor." He suddenly pulled on the long chain, and Tang Jing was suddenly brought flying towards him. He opened his mouth wide, as if he really wanted to swallow Tang Jing in a single bite. Looking at the large mouth that emitted a fishy smell, Tang Jing felt disgusted. Seeing that he was about to be bitten by that large mouth, Tang Jing did not tire of struggling. He had absorbed almost all of the purine energy in the soul-binding chain, and the pure yang energy in his body was finally slightly pacified. Only then could he breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he was not frightened by Qi Yu and did not allow him to seize control of his body. This was because no one would have thought that he would encounter purine energy in the 18 layers of hell. This was truly a coincidence. He did not have time to sigh at the fickle nature of fate. Looking at the large mouth that was inches away from him, Tang Jing turned his wrist and aimed it at the Ghost King. Although he could not move, he could still move parts of his body with some difficulty. When his palm was aimed at the Ghost King, Tang Jing hurriedly activated the sky-devouring technique. Whoosh whoosh. A black hole silently appeared in front of him. Everyone was shocked. A pitch-black hole appeared out of nowhere. Even if they were knowledgeable, they had never heard of such a thing. Soul-devouring. Tang Jing roared, and the sky-devouring technique's powerful effects were displayed. Chapter 967. The Ghost King staggered back. With every step he took, a large hole appeared on the ground, and the cracks quickly spread with his footsteps. From this, it could be seen how flustered he was. Actually, the main reason was that this soul-devouring technique was too fatal to him. Although he tried his best to resist, he still felt like he was about to be sucked into the black hole. Seeing that he was still able to retreat, Tang Jing coldly snorted, and said, "You want to escape? You may not be underestimating me." He was like a shadow, although he was still bound by the soul-binding chain, but he lightly tapped his foot and quickly caught up, and slapped the Ghost King's body. The Ghost King looked at the hand imprinted on his chest in disbelief, and his whole body trembled. A black light flashed. Before he could scream, he turned into a wisp of black smoke and was sucked into the black hole. This scene made the others turn pale with fright, and they subconsciously forgot to move. They never thought that there would be a technique that specifically targeted them. This was more powerful than the attacks of other magical weapons. After all, their main body was a ghost, although after cultivating, there would be a huge difference between them and other wandering ghosts, but their essence did not change. In fact, after the members of the ghost realm cultivated, they did not have the same physical body as humans, although they also had a physical body, but in the end, they were still ghosts. This soul-devouring technique specifically targeted souls. It was simply their nemesis. Tang Jing had experienced it before, so he was not surprised. Seeing the Ghost King disappear, his body relaxed, and the soul-binding chain automatically loosened. Because the Ghost King was dead, this magical weapon became an ownerless object, and the attack naturally collapsed. The pure yang energy in Tang Jing's body also calmed down a little, so he did not immediately explode and die. Therefore, he hurriedly kept the soul-binding chains into the Sumra world, and with a fierce glare, he stared at the other ghost generals and ghost commanders. Seeing the Ghost King mysteriously die in Tang Zheng's hands, these guys' heartstrings trembled, but they did not retreat. Looking at each other, their eyes emitted a blue light and shouted, "Eat him." Immediately, this group of guys crazily rushed over. Tang Zheng secretly sighed, "Since you voluntarily came to die, then don't blame me." Boom boom boom. The ground shook under their footsteps, and the originally spider-web-like cracks quickly spread. Kacha! The ground completely split open, and everyone screamed. One after another, they discovered that they were actually free-falling. The four symbols' Venerable's huge body also fell down. For Venerable, go in. Tang Zheng would not just watch as it disappeared into the darkness below. With a thought, he kept it into the Sumra world, and his body also fell rapidly. Battle Soul Sword, Imperial Sword Flight. So. War Soul Sword, he finally was able to let out a breath, Tang Zheng. Ghost to the ground, while flying, to ghost. And the ghost to the point to the Zheng to the ghost to stop ghost. To the ghost to the ghost to ghost to the ghost to die ghost to them to the ghost. They only cared about Tang Zheng, and all of them stared at him like a tiger eyeing its prey. Tang Zheng was outnumbered, but he did not lose in terms of aura. He extended his arm, and the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow appeared. Kill! The other party let out a deafening battle cry and swarmed over. Wang! The bowstring trembled, and the sun-shooting arrow left the bowstring, bringing with it a tidal wave of berserk aura that swept over. It was like a monstrous wave, and the wave fiercely slammed down. Boom! The one at the front was directly sent flying by this aura, crashing into the people behind him, causing him to be thrown off his horse. Puff puff puff. The sun-shooting arrow seemed to be tireless as it pierced through the bodies of 3 ghost commanders and 4 ghost generals, but it did not stop. These fellows tried to grab the sun-shooting arrow with their hands, but they could only watch as the sun-shooting arrow pierced through their chests. All of a sudden, they lost control and fell into the dark abyss below one after another. Bang! The sun-shooting arrow struck the hard rock, causing it to fly into the air. Only then did it stop, leaving behind the arrow feather that was still trembling outside. This arrow had taken care of more than 10 enemies. In a spurt of energy, Tang Zheng pulled the bowstring again. Before the other party could react, the second and third sun-shooting arrow arrived one after another. The sky seemed to have changed color, and the chi in the crater was completely stirred up and shattered. Puff puff puff. A series of sounds could be heard. These Ghost Commander-S and Ghost Generals were not a match for the sun-shooting arrow at all. No matter how they dodged, as long as they were locked onto by the sun-shooting arrow, they would definitely die. After all, Tang Zheng's cultivation was already extremely high, and with the help of sacred artifacts like the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow, one could imagine how much fighting strength he could unleash. This series of attacks caused the other party to be stunned. The rest of them looked at Tang Zheng in a daze, not knowing how he could unleash such a powerful fighting strength. Tang Zheng took advantage of the moment when the other party was in a daze to retrieve the shooting sun arrows. Currently, he had 8 shooting sun arrows, and the 9th one was lost in the Yama Palace, so he was unwilling to leave this treasure behind. Seeing that the other party's fighting strength had been disintegrated, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He did not use the sun-shooting arrow again, but instead activated the sky-swallowing technique. A huge black hole immediately appeared, and with a flash of his body, the black hole followed him like a shadow, immediately devouring all the ghosts that he passed by. The name of Soul Devourer was definitely well-deserved. Immediately, the few remaining enemies finally retreated. They had persisted for so long without hesitation, and finally knew how to retreat for the first time. If the other members of the ghost realm saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. After all, this kind of thing was not something an ordinary person could do. Tang Jing flew towards the other party on his sword. With a whoosh, the other party immediately turned around and ran, rushing downwards. "Where do you think you're going?" Tang Jing bellowed. These guys wanted to eat him, how could he let them go? He immediately chased after them on his sword. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One after the other, the two parties engaged in a chase, but Tang Jing's speed was faster. Just as he was about to catch up, a fishy smell came from below. Tang Jing was shocked and subconsciously stopped in his tracks. He found that the dark abyss had actually reached the bottom. Just now, he took a glance and found that from top to bottom, there were 17 levels. The bottom level was the 18th, the last level of the 18 levels of hell. Without a doubt, this last level was the most dangerous and terrifying. Therefore, he did not dare to be careless and looked down warily. The few ghost marshals rushed down and disappeared without a trace. Gurgle gurgle. A series of strange sounds rang out, and Tang Jing's nerves suddenly tensed up. A ball of true fire appeared at the tip of his finger, illuminating the surroundings. The yin qi here was very thick as seawater. The area illuminated by the flames was very limited, so Tang Jing could only vaguely see the situation below. But just this little bit was enough to make his hair stand on end. Below them was a huge pool. The water in the pool was as black as ink, and the bubbling sounds were the bubbles rising from the pool. After the bubbles burst, they turned into a ghostly face. Furthermore, there were countless ghosts rolling around in the pool. Their expressions were ferocious, and they were terrifying to look at. What the hell is this? Tang Jing felt a chill down his spine. His intuition told him that this place was even more terrifying. Although there was nothing to attack him, this was just the calm before the storm. As if to prove his words, the bubbles rose faster and faster, more and more. Soon, they filled the entire pool. Ferocious ghost faces gradually flew up, turning into a bloody mouth and biting down on Tang Jing's head. The mouth could almost completely envelop Tang Jing. He hurriedly raised the holy armor shield. With a crack, the bloody mouth bit down on the holy armor shield, producing an ear-piercing sound. The holy armor shield glowed, blocking the attack. Tang Jing took the opportunity to use the sky-swallowing technique. A black hole appeared, and a small part of the ghost face was immediately torn and sucked into the black hole. Roar! The ghost face immediately let out a series of angry roars. More and more bubbles appeared in the pool. Gurgle gurgle, as if the water was boiling. After the bubbles burst, the ghost face immediately repaired the damaged ghost face, and then bit down on Tang Jing again. Tang Jing was sure that the sky-swallowing technique could deal with this ghost face, so he didn't use the holy armor shield to block it. Instead, he waved his hands forward, and a huge black hole appeared out of thin air, coincidentally facing the ghost face. The soul-devouring effect suddenly appeared, and a huge force tore apart half of the ghost face. This attack was even more ferocious than before, and the ghost face also suffered more serious injuries. It didn't have time to repair itself before it was enveloped by an even stronger suction force. The ghost face struggled fiercely, but found that it was useless. It couldn't escape from the black hole at all. You still want to run? Go in for me. Tang Jing gave a loud roar and quickly activated his martial arts, causing a surge of suction force to fiercely pull ghost face mask into the black hole. Everything returned to normal, but the bubbles in the pool continued to churn as if they were brewing something. Tang Jing's body tensed up. This ghost face was fierce, but it was far from being as powerful as he had imagined. This meant that there was definitely more danger waiting for him. Just as he was going all out and accumulating his power, he suddenly saw a figure in the darkness. There was a figure sitting in the shadows of the pool. He was bald, sitting cross-legged with his palms together, but his face couldn't be seen clearly. This made Tang Jing shocked. This scene was completely out of place with the surroundings. What was going on? Who was he? Tang Jing stared straight at him, and found that he had a solemn appearance. Although he couldn't see his face clearly, he gave off a very calm and peaceful feeling, as if he could instantly calm people down. Moreover, his lips opened and closed, as if he was chanting something. Chapter 968. Tang Jing looked at the other party in shock. If the scripture had such a huge magical power, it was enough to show how powerful the other party was. Could it be that he was the Dizang of Goguryeo that the other ghost messengers were so afraid of? Tang Jing opened his eyes wide and carefully looked at the other party. Only then did he realize that the other party was very similar to the monks in the temples. He wore a kasaya, had a shaved head, and had a solemn appearance, just like an eminent monk. But compared to those so-called eminent monks in the world, there was no comparison at all. The difference was like the difference between an ant and a tree. What scripture is he reciting? I've never heard of it before. Tang Jing frowned suspiciously. He used to be a top student and read a lot of books. He even dabbled in scriptures, but the scripture that was being recited by the Dizang of Goguryeo was something he had never heard of before. When the scripture came out of his mouth, a mysterious and unfathomable power accompanied it and surrounded his body. When the sinister ghost faces in the pool touched his body, they immediately became very peaceful, without a trace of malevolence. Then, the ghost faces flashed and disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Tang Jing was shocked. His intuition told him that the scripture must have had an effect on the ghost faces, but he was still unable to determine the specific effect. He didn't know that it was the ghost faces that were being purified. Every ghost face was a ghost, and when they were purified, they left the 9 serenities hell. The Dizang of Goguryeo seemed to be tireless and kept reciting the scripture. The originally tumbling pool gradually calmed down. The ghost faces seemed to have met their nemesis and dived back into the pool, disappearing without a trace. All of this happened too fast, causing Tang Jing to be at a loss for a moment. He could only stare blankly at the Dizang of Goguryeo. Suddenly, the Dizang of Goguryeo turned his head. Tang Jing saw the Dizang of Goguryeo's bright eyes at a glance. What kind of eyes were those? Tang Jing had never seen such eyes before. His heartstrings trembled as all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. There was not a trace of ruthlessness in those eyes, but they were not completely unperturbed either. Instead, they were filled with benevolence, as if they could melt a person's heart with just a glance. This is too amazing. For a long time, Tang Jing was unwilling to shift his gaze away. In the other party's eyes, he could find a long-lost peace. It made his heart as still as water, and his mind wandered beyond the heavens. When the Dizang of Goguryeo saw Tang Jing, he was not as surprised as the other ghosts when they saw him. Instead, he was calm and composed, and there was not even a trace of fluctuation in his eyes. This calmness made Tang Jing's expression turn solemn. He cupped his hand slightly toward Dizang of Goguryeo and said, "May I ask if your excellency is Dizang of Goguryeo?" The Dizang of Goguryeo did not nod or shake his head. He only lightly said, "A name is just a code. I have been waiting for you here for a long time." This answer was a disguised admission that he was the Dizang of Goguryeo. "What, you were waiting for me?" Tang Jing was shocked. He had never seen the other party before, so why would he wait for him? He quickly collected his thoughts and said, "You and I have never met before. How did you know that I was the one you were waiting for?" "Because I saw you in a dream." "In a dream?" Tang Jing grinned. This statement was too mysterious, and he did not dare to believe it completely. As if he knew what Tang Jing was thinking, the Dizang of Goguryeo explained, "The 3,000 great dreams. You can also comprehend the Tao in dreams, and you appeared in my dream." This is the will of the heavens for you and me to meet. Tang Zhang was confused. How was this related to the heavens again? He was very clear that the heavens was a great Tao that operated in the universe. As for what the heavens were, no one could say for sure. This time, the Dizang of Goguryeo actually said that the heavens wanted them to meet. How could Tang Zhang remain calm? Why did the heavens want us to meet? Tang Zhang could not help but ask. I am unable to completely guess the will of the heavens, but since you and I have met, there must be a reason. The Dizang of Goguryeo slowly said. His voice was very gentle, like the morning bell and evening drum. Hearing this, Tang Zhang's brows furrowed even tighter. Why did you come to the 18 levels of hell? The Dizang of Goguryeo asked. Tang Zhang could not figure out what the heavens wanted to do. After listening to his question, Tang Zhang had a thought and hesitated whether to tell the truth. But when he saw the other's eyes that were as clear as a mirror, the thought of deceiving flashed through his mind. In the end, he told the truth. I came to explore the true purpose of the 10 kings of hell in the ghost realm. Oh, about what purpose? In fact, what he did was harming the ghost realm, but the Dizang of Goguryeo had an aura that made him trust, which made him subconsciously blurt out, I want to know how the ghost realm is going to deal with the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life has reappeared in the world. The Dizang of Goguryeo raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. It was enough to make him so surprised, which showed the importance of the Tree of Life. Yes. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva closed his eyes and muttered to himself, the cycle of the heavenly axiom. Could this be the will of the heavenly axiom? Everything that they did in the past is now returned to them. Tang Zhang's heart moved. It seemed that the Dizang of Goguryeo's words had a deeper meaning. May I ask what happened in the past? The Dizang of Goguryeo did not answer, but opened his eyes, stared at Tang Zhang, and asked, your human world is using the Tree of Life to absorb the original energy of the ghost realm, right? What? Tang Zhang was shocked. How did you know? Did the 10 kings of hell tell you? This is the most terrifying place in the ghost realm, no one else would be willing to come here. The Dizang of Goguryeo said. Then how did you know about this? Because this is what you will definitely do. The human world was downgraded from a big world to a small world, you will definitely find ways to become a big world again, and the only way is to absorb the original energy of the ghost realm, plus the reappearance of the Tree of Life in the human world. Everything will happen naturally, so naturally it is not difficult to guess the result. Although the Dizang of Goguryeo's words were understated, but these words deeply shocked Tang Zhang. This was a true master, able to infer the correct answer through clues. Immediately, he was on guard, since the other party had guessed all of this. Would the Dizang of Goguryeo, as a member of the ghost realm, stop him? He was still delusional to find out the plan of the 10 kings of hell from him. It seemed like he was looking for fish from a tree. The Dizang of Goguryeo's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He glanced at Tang Zhang without leaving a trace, and said, you don't have to worry about what I will do to you. I have never killed a living creature in my life. Although you are a person of the human world, I will still not kill you. Tang Zhang did not dare to relax. The members of the ghost realm were not ordinary people, and the Dizang of Goguryeo was an existence that the other members were so afraid of. What if he was a very cunning person? Many things in this world were deceptive. Although the other party did make Tang Zhang relax, there was always a trace of vigilance in his heart. The Dizang of Goguryeo also saw Tang Zhang's vigilance, but he ignored it and continued to say, although I am a member of the ghost realm, I do not agree with what they did in the past. Since it is the will of the heavenly axiom for us to meet, it means that I will not stop what you do. Tang Zhang moved his head, seeing that he mentioned the past again. He did not give up and asked, what happened in the past? The ghost realm also absorbed the original energy of your human world, so it can be promoted to a big world. This time, the Dizang of Goguryeo did not hide and told him the truth. Sure enough. Tang Zhang had already guessed a little, and when he got confirmation, he nodded with a sullen face. Since all of this was taken away by the ghost realm, then it is reasonable for me to take it back, right? Of course. The Dezong of Goguryeo nodded. This hurts the ghost realm, will you turn a blind eye? The Dezong of Goguryeo pondered and said, since it is the will of the heavenly axiom, I will naturally follow the will. After a slight pause, he said, however, the ghost realm and the human world are interdependent. If you use the tree of life to absorb too much of the original energy of the ghost realm, it is not a good thing. Oh, why? The Dezong of Goguryeo looked at him and said, it seems that you don't know the details, maybe the heavenly axiom wants us to meet because of this consideration. If you keep absorbing the original energy of the ghost realm will eventually be destroyed, then where will the souls of the people in the human world go after they die? Ha! Tang Jing only wanted to promote the human world to a big world, but he never thought about this problem, so he was stumped for a moment. Seeing that he could not answer, the Dezong of Goguryeo said, the heavenly axiom wants to avoid the worst situation. What situation? The ghost realm and the human world fought each other, and finally both died. Back then, the ghost realm absorbed the original energy of the human world, which destined the two worlds to fight. Yes, so now it is time to return it. But will the 10 kings of hell agree? No. The Dezong of Goguryeo shook his head. Tang Jing smiled bitterly, he did not expect his answer to be so straightforward. Since they can't agree, then the fight between the two worlds will definitely escalate, and it will be in full swing. This is not something that a single person can control. If you haven't tried, how do you know it won't work? The Dezong of Goguryeo asked. You want to persuade the 10 kings of hell? Tang Jing was shocked. The Dezong of Goguryeo was not in a hurry to answer, but fell into deep thought. Obviously, this was a very difficult thing for him to do. Tang Jing was not in a hurry to ask, this was not a small problem for the Dezong of Goguryeo, so he could wait. After a long time, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva raised his head and said, I once swore that as long as hell was not empty, I would not become a Buddha. Now that hell is not empty, I have to leave. What do you mean? With regards to this oath, Tang Jing was also confused. When he heard that he was going to leave, he was even more confused about his routine. The Dezong of Goguryeo looked at him and said, before he could finish, the air in front of him fluctuated violently, and in a short while, it turned into a door, and a figure with a feather fan and a silk headband strode out of the door. The door quickly disappeared again. If it was not for the living person standing in front of him, he would have thought that it was an illusion. Tang Jing felt a chill in his heart, because he felt a familiar aura from the other party, the aura of the King of Hell. In the past, he had fought with the Chakravarti king and the King of Hell, so he was very familiar with this aura, and the one in front of him was probably one of the 10 kings of hell. The Yama's seal was connected to the 18 levels of hell. When Song Jianguang cast a spell and entered the 18 levels of hell through the Yama's seal, the first thing that came into sight was Tang Jing. Chapter 969. After seeing Tang Jing, Song Jianguang's eyes widened and he staggered backward. He thought that he had come to the wrong place. This was the 18th level of hell, how could there be a living person? Moreover, there shouldn't be living people in the world of spirits and souls. But when he turned his gaze and saw Dezong of Goguryeo, he was sure that he hadn't come to the wrong place. But immediately, he was even more confused. He stared straight at Tang Jing and asked, "Who are you?" "Hey, why do you look a little familiar?" Tang Jing's head moved. He had never seen him before, why would he find him familiar? Before Tang Jing could ask the question in his heart, Song Jianguang exclaimed again and stared at Tang Jing incredulously. You are that person. The person who guards the tree of life." Tang Jing's heart trembled. How did he recognize me? At that time, he didn't appear in the human world. Could it be that vortex? His guess was right. Although the 10 kings of hell hadn't arrived in the human world, the vortex was equivalent to their eyes. They had seen the battle below clearly. Not only him, but even the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi were seen clearly by them. The last time Tang Jing came to the world of spirits and souls, he used illusion to disguise himself. In the hearts of the King of Hell and the King of Chakravarti, he had already sunk into the river Styx and died long ago. So even if they saw Tang Zhang's true face from the vortex, they didn't recognize him. However, the 10 kings of hell remembered Tang Zhang's face. Song Jiangwang didn't recognize him at once, mainly because he didn't expect him to be in the 9th level of hell. Now that he recognized him, he was really shocked and angry. This living person actually came to the world of spirits and souls, and even came to the 9th level of hell. Most importantly, he was safe and sound. This was beyond his common sense. Since he was recognized, Tang Zheng became extra careful and ready to attack. He asked cautiously, "Which one of the 10 kings of hell are you?" "He is Song Jiangwang." Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly spoke. Only then did Song Jiangwang realize that Tang Zheng and Dizang of Goguryeo did not make a big fuss. This was beyond common sense. Therefore, he looked at both parties thoughtfully. "Song Jiangwang, I'll remember that." Tang Jing nodded. He was not familiar with the 10 kings of hell at all, so he did not know how powerful Song Jiangwang was. However, he did not dare to underestimate him. Last time, he had been chased by King Yanluo and the Chakravarti king to the point that he could only flee. If not for the protection of the 4 divine beasts, he would have long lost his life in the ghost world. From this, one could see how powerful the 10 kings of hell were. "You've got some guts. How dare you come to the world of spirits and souls? What is your ulterior motive?" Song Jiangwang scolded sternly, but he glanced at Dizang of Goguryeo from the corner of his eyes. Song Jiangwang was wise and resourceful, but he was suspicious by nature. He did not trust anyone but himself. Therefore, when he saw that Tang Zheng and Dizang of Goguryeo were safe and sound, he became suspicious. Could it be that this person was in cahoots with Dizang of Goguryeo? Otherwise, how could he explain why he came to the world of spirits and souls and ended up in the 9th level of hell for no reason? If he did not have the guidance of an expert, how could he have done this? Moreover, there was the ghost labyrinth set up by Dizang of Goguryeo outside. It was not something that could be broken in by any ordinary person. All in all of this was strange and could not be explained by common sense. Song Jiangwang was good at concocting conspiracies. Naturally, he thought that all of this was a conspiracy. He couldn't help but rejoice that he had come to the 9 Serenities hell. Otherwise, who knew what the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was plotting with this person? At that time, the 10 kings of hell would be caught unprepared. This Dizang of Goguryeo seemed to have been enlightened. He even knew to join forces with humans. Could it be that he had misjudged him? Song Jiangwang's thoughts turned thousands of times, and his gaze wandered. Seeing him like this, Tang Jing said fearlessly, "Why would I tell you my purpose for coming here? How dare you? In the world of spirits and souls, you still dare to be so arrogant. Could it be that you have something to rely on?" Song Jiangwang said firmly. Tang Jing raised the corner of his mouth and said, "What do I need to rely on? I don't need anything." "Is that so?" Song Jiangwang was skeptical. In his heart, he had already determined that Tang Jing was the Dizang of Goguryeo's accomplice. Naturally, he would not believe these words. He turned around and said to the Dizang of Goguryeo, "Dizang of Goguryeo, this person is from the human world. He is our enemy. What business does he have here?" Since he could not get anything out of Tang Jing, he turned his attention to the Dizang of Goguryeo. The Dizang of Goguryeo raised his eyes and looked at Song Jiangwang without sadness or joy. He said, "You know better than me why he is here." "What do I know? The cause that you sowed back then is the fruit that you bear today. Cause and effect." Yes. Song Jianguang's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the Dizang of Goguryeo. The cause that he sowed back then, could it be that he used the 9 underworld lightning to kill the tree of life and then took the opportunity to absorb the original energy of the human world? This action was actually instigated by him. Song Jianguang was too smart. From an ancient book, he discovered the difference between a large world and a small world. He also understood that the small world was in danger of being destroyed at any time. Therefore, he encouraged the 10 kings of hell to take the opportunity to destroy the tree of life. At that time, he was not one of the 10 kings of hell. It was because of this incident that his prestige rose and he became one of the 10 kings of hell. In fact, their action of using the 9 underworld lightning to kill the tree of life could be said to be huge. At that time, human cultivators were still in this world, but they knew very little about the tree of life. Basically, no one knew the use of the tree of life. They were careless and gave the ghost realm an opportunity. The 9 underworld lightning successfully killed the tree of life. The original energy of the human world collapsed and the spiritual energy gradually became thin. The ghost realm took the opportunity to use the 9 underworld eye to absorb the original energy of the human world and quietly advance to a large world. However, the ghost realm did pay a price. The 9 underworld hell in front of them was the aftermath. In fact, the 9 underworld used to be a paradise in the ghost realm. It was a holy land for cultivation. Because of the existence of the 9 underworld eye, the yin energy here was rich and cultivation was twice the result with half the effort. It was a place that many members of the ghost realm flocked to. However, ever since they used the 9 underworld eye to absorb the original energy of the human world, the 9 underworld changed. The yin energy was mixed with a lot of evil energy. Once it was absorbed into the body, it would lose itself and eventually become a machine that only knew how to kill. The 10 kings of hell were forced to stop the plan to absorb the original energy of the human world. In fact, according to their original plan, they wanted to use the 9 underworld eye to absorb the original energy of the human world completely. This way, the ghost realm could become stronger. However, things did not go according to their wishes. The 9 underworld had undergone earth-shaking changes. All the members of the ghost realm nearby had mutated. Among them, the most famous one was one of the 10 kings of hell. He also mutated and was forced to be sealed in the 9 underworld. As a result, there was a vacancy in the position of king of hell. Only then did Song Jianguang have the opportunity to fill the vacancy. Since then, the 9 underworld was crowned with the name of hell. It meant that the most terrifying place in the ghost realm had become the 9 underworld hell. As for the 9 underworld eye, it became the 18 layers of hell that they were currently in. At the mention of karma, scenes of the past flashed through Song Jianguang's mind. A ferocious glint flashed across his eyes as he said, "Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva, the theory of karma is just your own words." Dizang of Goguryeo was not angry. He just shook his head gently. "The truth is right in front of you. Do you still not believe it? I only trust the power in my hands." Song Jianguang's palm flicked open. The Yama's seal in his hand began to spin, flickering with a dim light. Although he said so, he could not help but feel nervous. Originally, he wanted to ask the Dizang of Goguryeo to come out of seclusion. Once the tree of life was destroyed, he would think of ways to sow discord between the relationship between the Dizang of Goguryeo and the king of hell. He did not believe that with his intelligence and wisdom, he would not be able to sow discord between the two sides. At that time, he would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then reap the benefits. The vast ghost realm would be in his pocket. His wishful thinking could not be said to be not good, but he did not expect that Tang Jing would suddenly appear out of nowhere. He still could not figure out the relationship between Tang Jing and the Dizang of Goguryeo. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he kept probing. He was ready to use a trick again. He wanted to tie down the Dizang of Goguryeo first, then he would have a chance to make a move. Otherwise, he did not have the ability to make a move in front of the Dizang of Goguryeo. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, this person is a public enemy of the ghost world. He should be punished. I'll bring him back for interrogation. I'll take my leave first. King Songjiang probed hypocritically. Unexpectedly, the Dizang of Goguryeo did not give him face at all. He asked directly, "He is with me. Can you take him away?" This sentence seemed to be plain, but it was full of protection. Song Jiangwang's heart trembled, and he said, "Dizang of Goguryeo, you may not have heard my words clearly. He is the public enemy of the ghost realm. Not only me, but the other 9 kings of hell also want to punish him. This is not my idea alone." He used the names of the other kings of hell in an attempt to scare the Dizang of Goguryeo. After all, although the Dizang of Goguryeo was powerful, he still had to take into account the illustrious reputation of the 10 kings of hell. The Dizang of Goguryeo already had an idea in his heart. Moreover, there was that mysterious and unpredictable heavenly decree. Of course, he would not just watch as Tang Zheng was taken away. He said, "The 10 kings of hell's reputation is so great. I don't care about worldly affairs, but that does not mean I will be bullied for everything. Back then, you tricked me into coming to the 9 Serenities hell. I haven't settled this debt with you yet." Song Jiangwang's expression turned ugly. He did not expect the Dizang of Goguryeo to have seen through his scheme back then. However, Song Jiangwang was a veteran of hundreds of battles. He immediately regained his composure and said bitterly, "Dizang of Goguryeo, everything that happened back then was the King of Hell's idea. At that time, I had just become the King of Hell and did not have any prestige at all. I could not compete with the other kings of hell, let alone go against the King of Hell's decree. Therefore, the main culprit who trapped you here was the King of Hell, and not me. I tried to persuade him many times, but it was useless." The Dizang of Goguryeo looked at him with neither joy nor sorrow. This gaze made Song Jiangwang's heart beat like a drum. However, he still held it in and did not look away. He pretended to be magnanimous as he looked at the Dizang of Goguryeo. Tang Zheng did not expect the Dizang of Goguryeo to be so righteous and protect him like this. However, when he saw that Song Jiangwang did not put him in his eyes at all, the anger in his heart rose bit by bit. "I'm not a soft persimmon that you can pinch as you please." Chapter 970. Tang Zheng took a step forward with his sword, blocking Song Jiangwang's line of sight. Song Jiangwang was startled, and said, "What, you still dare to clamor with me?" Tang Zheng sneered, "Song Jiangwang, do you really think that you can casually control me by looking down on me like this? Isn't that so?" Song Jiangwang asked back, looking at Tang Zheng in ridicule. "Then you'll know once you try." Dizang of Goguryeo also seemed to want to know Tang Zheng's strength, and looked at Tang Zheng meaningfully, but did not interrupt. Seeing that Dizang of Goguryeo did not say a word, Song Jiangwang's expression changed rapidly. It was thought-provoking, and thought to himself that the relationship between Dizang of Goguryeo and this living person seemed to be somewhat strange. Since Dizang of Goguryeo did not object, wouldn't that be exactly what he wanted? "Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll fulfill your wish." Song Jiangwang said with killing intent. His figure flashed and attacked Tang Zheng. Good timing. Tang Zheng gave a low roar. The heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow appeared in his hands. With a flash of the arrow, the shooting sun arrow flew towards Song Jiangwang. Song Jiangwang's face was filled with shock. This was because when the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow were displayed, he could tell that they were not ordinary. He immediately thought of a rumor that he had heard before. Back then, a human expert had appeared in Yama Palace and also used a bow and arrow. He had even left an arrow in Yama King's hands and kept it like a treasure. But later on, this person fell into the river Styx and died. Now, another archer had appeared, and he could also freely walk in the ghost realm. Could it be that there was a connection between the two of them? Before he could think about it carefully, the shooting sun arrow had already arrived in front of him. The yin qi in the 18 levels of hell was as viscous as the seawater, surging towards Song Jiangwang like a tidal wave, enveloping him in an instant. Song Jiangwang extended his hand, and the Yama seal descended from the sky, colliding with the shooting sun arrow. The surging yin qi directly rushed towards the pool below. Boom! The water vapor splashed the black water all over the sky, like an angry dragon flying towards both sides. 2 rays of light blossomed on the two people's bodies. The black water fell on the light rays and made a sizzling sound, but it did not hurt the two people at all. Dizong of Goguryeo sat in the middle of the pool. The waves were turbulent, but they did not harm him in the slightest. Moreover, his eyes were filled with interest as he watched the battle between the two. The battle was extremely intense. Waves of energy flew everywhere, and the 18 layers of hell seemed to have changed completely. The heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows released a huge amount of power, and the Yama's seal was not to be underestimated either. Tang Zheng was almost certain that this Yama's seal was a divine weapon that was even more powerful than the King of Hell's seal of the Chakravarti King. It was on par with the King of Hell's seal. In addition, Song Jiangwang's cultivation was at least at the semi-god realm. Therefore, even though Tang Zheng had the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows, he was still unable to defeat him. However, Dizong of Goguryeo's eyes became brighter and brighter, because Tang Zheng's fighting strength had already far exceeded his expectations. The heavenly Tao did not lie to him, and attracted such a strong human expert. Tang Zheng was not too surprised. After all, he had seen the power of the King of Hell, so he already had a preliminary estimate. Just as he was about to summon the 4 symbols venerable to deal with Song Jiangwang, a monstrous black wave suddenly rose up and struck towards the two of them. The appearance of this black wave was extremely sudden and inexplicable, causing Tang Zheng and Song Jiangwang to not be able to defend against it. As a result, the black wave directly drenched their heads. Sizzle! Immediately, a series of sounds like roasting meat rang out. Tang Zheng cried out in pain, and actually felt a burning pain. Looking down, he discovered that the places where the black wave had touched had turned fiery red, and his skin was festering. This scene gave him a fright, and he immediately channeled his energy, trying to resist the black waves. However, the black wave was extremely ferocious, and was actually not afraid of Tang Zheng's innate qi. Like a spark of fire, it instantly spread to more parts of Tang Zheng's skin. On the other side, Song Jiangwang also jumped up. He did not care about Tang Zheng at all, and quickly channeled his energy. A black light rose from his body, and the black waves gradually disappeared without a trace. It was obvious that his condition was much better than Tang Zheng's. What's going on? Tang Zheng looked at all of this in disbelief. Song Jiangwang took a deep breath and sneered, "Ha, the heavens are helping me. Do you think that the things in the 18 levels of hell are so simple? Not only is this black wave fatal to the members of the world of spirits and souls, but it is also absolutely lethal to you humans. Your skin will completely fester, and in the end, you will become a ghost. When that time comes, let's see how you can still be so arrogant." If Tang Zheng became a ghost and lost his physical body, his strength would definitely drop from the sky to the ground. When that time came, how could he be Song Jiangwang's opponent? He did not expect that the stinky black wave would be so lethal, and his heart trembled. He did not think that Song Jiangwang was lying to him. This was definitely true. Seeing his expression become so ugly, Song Jiangwang was even more pleased, and said jokingly, "Don't waste your energy, your innate qi cannot resist the black wave. It is mixed with the most sinister yin qi in the world of spirits and souls, and its lethality is fatal." Tang Zheng coldly snorted, resisting the pain, and said, "I'm not scared. It's not that easy to take my life." Seeing that Song Jiangwang could easily resist the black wave, he did not believe that he had no way at all. However, he did not know that this black wave was most effective against the real body of a person, and was even more effective than against a ghost. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Tang Zhang's ears, and it was like the sound of nature. The irritation in his heart immediately disappeared, and the pain in his body suddenly stopped. As for the injuries on his body, they were miraculously healed. Seeing this scene, not only Tang Zhang, but even Song Jiangwang was dumbfounded. This was because Song Jiangwang had never seen the Dizang of Goguryu's magic. The Dizang of Goguryeo had been in the 9 levels of hell for hundreds of years, and no one had ever seen him. Naturally, they did not understand his situation. Today, seeing him, Song Jiangwang found that the Dizang of Goguryeo was even more unfathomable. He could not guess how deep the cultivation of the Dizang of Goguryeo was. What kind of magic is this? Song Jiangwang asked. The Dizang of Goguryeo raised his eyes and lightly glanced at him, saying, "The Ksitigarbha Sutra. I have been here for hundreds of years, and it is a set of scriptures that I have comprehended. How does it feel? How does it feel? This feeling is very shocking, do you know?" Song Jiangwang's heart was screaming. The Ksitigarbha Sutra is very effective against the ghosts here. I believe that before long, I will be able to make the underworld empty, and the 9 levels of hell will no longer exist. The Dizang of Goguryeo said confidently. Song Jiangwang had never seen the Dizang of Goguryeo boast before. Since he said so, then he must be very confident. The Ksitigarbha Sutra could speed up the Dizang of Goguryeo's conversion of the ghosts here. This set of scriptures was simply heaven-defying. From the fact that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was able to heal Tang Zhang's injuries with just a few simple lines of scripture, one could see how powerful he was. When Tang Zhang thought of the scriptures that the Dizang of Goguryeo spoke of before, he was deeply shocked. He could not help but admire the Dizang of Goguryeo. To be able to comprehend the Great Tao and comprehend this kind of Ksitigarbha Sutra out of nothing, this was a true almighty ability. Although many people were powerful, they could only inherit and carry forward other people's cultivation methods. They could comprehend a new set of cultivation methods on their own. This was what made them powerful. The current Tang Zhang could not compare to them, but he was looking forward to it. If he could have such achievements one day, then his life would not have been in vain. The cultivation methods that he cultivated were very complicated. The ancient clear heaven scroll and the dragon god's secret art were the foundation. The others, such as the 9 revolutions Vajra technique, the heaven swallowing technique, the heaven flying immortal sword art, and so on, were all learned from others. Therefore, he still had a very long way to go on the road of cultivation. Of course, not every cultivator or martial artist could have the opportunity and ability to create a first-rate cultivation method, but if they could do this, then they would be famous throughout the ages. Dizang of Goguryeo, then it seems that I have to congratulate you. Song Jiangwang said insincerely. Dizang of Goguryeo's expression did not change. He was as motionless as a mountain, making Song Jiangwang completely unable to guess his thoughts. Since the Dizang of Goguryeo had made his move, then should he fight or retreat? If he retreated, then his plan would be for naught. But if he continued to fight, with the Dizang of Goguryeo, how could he have any chance of winning? Boom! Suddenly, a loud sound interrupted his thoughts. He saw a huge wave rise up in the pool. The pool water bubbled, and one after another, ghost faces appeared on the surface of the pool. What's going on? Song Jiangwang shouted in shock. Dizang of Goguryeo's expression instantly became serious. Seeing his reaction, even Tang Zhang's head sank. After all, the Dizang of Goguryeo's expression did not change. He was neither sad nor happy. This change was definitely not a good thing. As expected, the Dizang of Goguryeo said in a deep voice, "You've been accumulating power for so many years. Are you finally going to come out?" Hearing this, Tang Zhang and Song Jiangwang were both confused. Song Jiangwang asked curiously, Dizang of Goguryeo, just what is going on? The seed that was planted back then is the fruit of today. This matter is also related to you. The Dizang of Goguryeo looked deeply at Song Jiangwang and said meaningfully. Song Jiangwang's brows furrowed. He still did not understand the meaning behind his words. He shouted angrily, don't be deliberately mystifying. The Dizang of Goguryeo did not answer him. Instead, he stared at the surface of the pool with a burning gaze. Boom, 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 loud sounds came from the bottom of the pool. It was like the sound of war drums that signaled the beginning of a war. It made people's hearts beat faster, and their blood seemed to be boiling. A burst of dense energy rose from the surface of the pool, and the air became more and more viscous, like glue. The Dizang of Goguryeo's expression became serious. He opened his mouth, and a passage of scriptures came out of his mouth. These scriptures turned into fist-sized golden Sanskrit words and flew to the surface of the pool. When these Sanskrit words appeared, the power of the Ksitigarbha Sutra increased greatly. It was many times more powerful than what they had seen before. Once the Sanskrit words came close, those writhing ghost faces immediately disappeared and were converted. Chapter 971. Looking at the turbulent pool, Tang Zhang and Song Jiangwang's hearts were in their throats. Suddenly, boom! With a loud sound, a monstrous black wave surged up. A huge creature rushed out of the pool. It was like a towering mountain, looking down at the three of them. This big guy was extremely ferocious and terrifying. Its huge head was a ferocious ghost face. Its two eyes were like blue flames that constantly jumped, and its big mouth was like a bottomless black hole, causing people to feel fear just by looking at it. What is this? Song Jiangwang exclaimed. Dizang of Goguryeo said with a serious expression, this is the cause you planted. Don't you recognize him? Song Jiangwang stared at the huge creature with suspicion. He frowned and said, he is. The king of the underworld. If the other kings of hell heard the three words king of the underworld, they would definitely be shocked. This was because this name had disappeared for too long. No one mentioned it at all. However, they would not forget. This was because the king of the underworld was one of the 10 kings of hell who were as famous as them. He was the king of hell who was harmed by the yin qi of the 9 underworlds. Because of his death, Song Jiangwang was able to ascend the throne. Therefore, how could Song Jiangwang not have a deep impression of him? Although the king of the underworld's appearance had changed greatly, one could still vaguely see the outline of the king of the underworld. Therefore, Song Jiangwang recognized him after looking carefully for a while. Because of this, he was indescribably shocked. This was because everyone thought that the king of the underworld was already dead. When he suddenly appeared at this time, no matter who it was, they would be shocked. However, it was obvious that Dizang of Goguryeo knew that the king of the underworld was not dead. That was why he said that karma. Tang Zhang did not recognize the king of the underworld, but when he saw the other party's appearance, he knew that the other party was not to be underestimated. However, seeing Song Jiangwang's reaction, he was very interested to know what kind of unusual relationship there was between the two of them. King of the underworld, so you're not dead. Song Jiangwang said. The netherworld king glared at Song Jiangwang and finally said, Song Jiang, so it was you. It was because of your plan that I ended up like this. Song Jiangwang's previous name was Song Jiang, and he was a subordinate of the Lord of the Underworld. He had planned for the Lord of the Underworld to become like this, so the Lord of the Underworld obviously did not have a good impression of him. The anger in his words was unmistakable. Song Jiangwang's eyelids twitched as he said, Netherworld King, this is all a mistake. I never thought that you would become like this. If I had known, I definitely wouldn't have done this. Also, if I had known that you were still alive, I would have risked my life to come to the ninth hell to save you. The Lord of the Underworld laughed coldly. Ha, who wants you to save me? My current condition is better than ever. Of course, if that bald donkey Dizang of Goguryeo wasn't around, would be even better. He has suppressed me for so many years. Now that I have achieved great success, I can finally break through his shackles. After saying this, the Lord of the Underworld turned to look at the Dizang of Goguryeo and laughed eerily. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva remained unfazed by the compliment and humiliation. He did not react in the slightest because of these words. However, Tang Zhang and Song Jiangwang were both shocked. It turned out that the Dizang of Goguryeo had been deliberately suppressing the Lord of the Underworld. As for why he would do this, Song Jiangwang thought for a moment and understood the reason behind it. This was because the Lord of the Underworld's temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. He could not be controlled at all. If he was not suppressed and allowed to leave the ninth hell, the impact would be immeasurable. Since the Dizang of Goguryeo could not suppress the Lord of the Underworld, then how profound was his current cultivation? Moreover, he said that he had achieved great success in his divine technique. What kind of divine technique did he cultivate? Also, Song Jiangwang, don't think that I don't know about your wild ambitions. When you were under my command, I always knew that you wanted to replace me. Now that I am dead, I'm afraid that the throne of the King of Hell has also fallen into your hands. The Lord of the Underworld exposed the mystery with a single sentence. Song Jiangwang's expression changed slightly, but he could not stop complaining. Lord of the Underworld, you have really misunderstood me. I have always been loyal to you. How could I have such thoughts? Then are you one of the kings of hell now? The Lord of the Underworld asked directly. Song Jiangwang stammered and could not say anything. The Lord of the Underworld's eyes shone with a fierce light like flames. He roared, so it is. I didn't guess wrongly. You are a wild and ambitious fellow. So what if you have become the king of hell? I will still take your life today. The tables had turned. No one had expected that the Lord of the Underworld would appear. Moreover, the Lord of the Underworld's anger towards Song Jiangwang was obviously very strong. This way, Song Jiangwang's situation was even worse. Song Jiangwang's expression finally changed drastically. His lies could no longer fool the Lord of the Underworld. This meant that he was attacked from both sides. Now, he should not be thinking about how to capture Tang Jing, but how to escape with his life. He subconsciously took a step back, trying to activate the King of Hell's seal and leave the 18 levels of hell. However, under the watchful eyes of everyone, the feasibility of his plan was obviously too low. Even if he activated the King of Hell's seal, the others would have a way to stop him immediately. Trying to escape. The Lord of the Underworld's words blocked Song Jiangwang's escape path. He looked resentful. I said that I would kill you, so I will definitely kill you. The Lord of the Underworld was very domineering. Song Jiangwang's expression kept changing. He suddenly had an idea. He suddenly turned to Dizang of Goguryeo and said, Dizang of Goguryeo, you have always boasted that you want to purify the malicious spirits and evil spirits in the 9 levels of hell. Isn't the Lord of the Underworld one of the greatest examples? Are you going to watch him commit murder without doing anything? Dizang of Goguryeo looked at Song Jiangwang indifferently and said, Song Jiangwang, you are really cunning. You want me to save you again? Haven't you always boasted that you are merciful? Are you going to let the Lord of the Underworld do whatever he wants? Song Jiangwang retorted. When Tang Jing saw this, he quickly interrupted, Song Jiangwang, you are a king of hell, but you use such a method to provoke him. Do you really think that the Dizang of Goguryeo will fall for your trick? Tang Jing naturally did not want the Dizang of Goguryeo to fall for Song Jiangwang's provocation. Otherwise, if he let him escape, the news of him coming to the world of spirits and souls would be made public. At that time, he would be surrounded by enemies, and his situation would be very bad. "Brat, who do you think you are? How dare you speak nonsense in front of me?" Song Jianguang was enraged. He did not wish for his chance to live to be ruined by Tang Jing. At the same time, his hatred for Tang Jing could be said to have seeped into his bones. He made up his mind, if he was unable to kill this brat this time, then he would definitely find a chance to kill him in the future. Seeing that both sides were at daggers drawn, the Dizong of Goguryeo finally interrupted. "Thank you for your reminder. I know Song Jianguang's intentions very well. He wants me to save him. Of course I know. He used this kind of provocation once before to trick me again. How could I not know?" Chapter 972. Since the Dizong of Goguryeo had already seen through Song Jianguang's intentions, he would definitely not fall for his trick again. Tang Jing relaxed. Just like Song Jianguang, he wanted to kill the other party. However, the Dizong of Goguryeo changed the topic and said something that shocked everyone. "I liberate all living beings, and all living beings are equal. Song Jianguang is naturally one of them, so I won't watch him die at the hands of the Netherworld King. Moreover, the Netherworld King is already very powerful. If he devours Song Jianguang, his power will definitely be turned upside down. When that happens, it will be even more difficult to restrain him." Ha ha ha. Song Jianguang laughed maniacally in his heart. The Kitagarbha Bodhisattva was actually still so inflexible. For the sake of his so-called beliefs, he was so stubborn and did not know how to be flexible. If that was the case, he would be able to keep his life. Tang Zhang's expression changed slightly, and he sighed secretly. Looking at the Dizong of Goguryo's resolute expression, he knew that it was useless to say anything more. He could not persuade him at all. The Netherworld King flew into a rage. "Dizong of Goguryeo, you've suppressed me for so many years, and I haven't settled the score with you yet, but you've taken the initiative to come knocking on my door. If that's the case, all of you must die today." After he finished speaking, his furious gaze swept across the few of them. Suddenly, his gaze fixed on the temperature of Tang Zhang's body. He was slightly stunned, and then he was overjoyed. Haha, there's actually a living person. Strange, strange. There's actually a living person in the world of spirits and souls. The taste must be very delicious. Tang Jing felt a chill. Indeed, none of the people in the 9 Serenities hell were normal. Even the Netherworld King wanted to eat him. He was not Tang Sang's meat. "Dizong of Goguryeo, you've been trying to liberate the vengeful spirits in the 9 Serenities hell, but you haven't really seen how powerful these vengeful spirits are. Today, I'll open your eyes." The king of the underworld let out a shrill cry that was sharp and ear-piercing. The hearts of the others shuddered as the cry quickly spread throughout the 18 levels of hell. Immediately, a series of sharp echoes came from the inner walls of the 18 levels of hell. The devilish sound entered one's ears and made one's heart tremble. "This isn't an echo." Tang Zhang's expression changed greatly as he shouted. "Ha, smart. This is indeed not an echo. Haven't you always thought that the ghosts in the 9th level of hell are in a state of disunity? Let me tell you, wrong. They are not in a state of disunity, they just lack a leader, and I am that leader now. Their explosive power will be beyond your imagination." As soon as he finished speaking, clouds of black gas emerged from the inner walls of the 18 levels of hell. In the end, they transformed into ghostly faces. Tang Zhang took a closer look. It turned out that there were countless black holes on the inner walls. They were dark and dense, like a beehive. Just now, Tang Zhang had not noticed this at all. At this moment, he looked particularly shocked. It was as if there were countless ghosts hidden in those black holes. They kept letting out sharp cries, and then the ghosts rushed out and circled above their heads. "This is..." Song Jianguang was dumbfounded. Dizong of Goguryeo sighed faintly and said, if 10,000 ghosts are not suppressed, the ghost world will be in chaos. The ghost world will be in chaos. Song Jianguang's shoulders trembled. He understood the seriousness of this sentence. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, harbored evil intentions. If the ghost realm was in chaos, wouldn't that be beneficial to him? Dizang of Goguryeo glanced lightly at Tang Zheng, as if he could see through his heart, and said, if the ghost world is in chaos, the ghosts will not be able to reincarnate smoothly. It will do more harm than good to the human world. After hearing this, Tang Zheng could not help but feel a bit ashamed. His thinking was too narrow, blinded by a single leaf. Of course, this did not waver Tang Zheng's determination to absorb the ghost world's origin energy. The human world had to be restored to a large world. The human world had to be stronger than the ghost world, just like it had been many years ago. This was the most beneficial to the human world. Therefore, we should work together to suppress the king of the underworld. This is the best choice. Dizang of Goguryeo continued. Tang Zheng moved his head and asked, are you really not a match for the king of the underworld? Dizang of Goguryeo did not answer, but the king of the underworld answered first, since he could not suppress me and let me come into being, it means that my power has surpassed his. Now that he wants to stop me, he's dreaming. Dizang of Goguryeo did not deny it. This meant that the king of the underworld was not lying. This made Tang Zheng and Song Jianguang shocked. Especially since Song Jianguang knew that Dizang of Goguryeo was an expert in the ghost world. Now that he was not a match for the king of the underworld, how could he not be shocked? Regardless of whether I can defeat you, king of the underworld, as long as I'm here, I won't let you do as you please and harm the ghost world. Dizang of Goguryeo said calmly, neither sad nor happy. Song Jianguang, I'll let you live for a while. I'll get rid of Dizang of Goguryeo first, then I'll deal with you. The king of the underworld said aggressively. With a flash, he hovered in front of Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo sat in the pool. No matter how strong the waves around him were, they could not hurt him. He raised his head and looked at the king of the underworld lightly, saying, King of the underworld, then let me see what kind of spell you've comprehended. Underworld's ghost art. The king of the underworld said lightly. Ah, what? You've really mastered the underworld's ghost art. Song Jianguang was shocked. He had heard of this spell before. Back when he was under the king of the underworld had mentioned this spell. This spell was a new spell that the king of the underworld had come up with. This spell was extremely vicious, and it required the user to devour countless ghosts for his own use. Back then, the king of the underworld was the king of hell. It was impossible for him to cultivate such a rebellious spell. Apart from Song Jianguang, who was his confidant, very few people knew about it. If the king of the underworld had not mentioned it, Song Jianguang would not have remembered it. Now, he immediately recalled the king of the underworld's description of this spell. He was flabbergasted and could not calm down for a long time. Looking at Song Jianguang's shocked reaction, the lord of the underworld laughed and said, You actually still remember this set of spells. I really didn't expect you to forget about running away now, didn't you? Song Jianguang's expression kept changing. He gritted his teeth and said, King of the underworld, don't be too happy. Do you really think you can cover the sky with one hand? You're too confident. I'm no longer the Song Jiang from back then. The Dizang of Goguryeo has even comprehended the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Do you think we can't defeat you even if we work together? At this critical moment of life and death, Song Jianguang placed his hope of survival on the Dizang of Goguryeo. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. The king of the underworld was furious. From today onwards, I'll rule over the ghost world. Since you guys are so stubborn, I'll use you guys as a sacrifice to my underworld ghost art. The lord of the underworld clenched his fist, and the yin spirits and malicious ghosts in the air instantly charged toward them. There were over 10,000 spirits and malicious ghosts, and there were both ghost citizens, ghost messengers, ghost generals, ghost marshals, and even a few ghost kings. When they attacked together, the battle prowess they unleashed was extremely shocking and powerful. The three of them launched a counterattack at the same time, each with a different style. Tang Jing drew his bow and shot 3 arrows at the same time. They pierced through the ghosts at the front and skewered the ones at the back. The 3 arrows came from 3 different directions, forming 3 spectacular scenes. The shooting sun arrows were like skewers of candied haws. Even a ghost king could not escape the attack of the shooting sun arrows. The ghosts bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they struggled, trying to break free from the shooting sun arrows. However, the shooting sun arrows shone brightly. In an instant, a series of deafening explosions came from the shooting sun arrows. The ghosts exploded completely, turning into wisps of yin qi. At the same time, the King of Hell's seal in Song Jiangwang's hand shone brightly, turning into thousands of black lights that enveloped the ghosts that were charging over. The ghosts immediately let out shrill cries as they melted into wisps of yin qi and were absorbed by the King of Hell's seal. The Dizong of Goguryu's method was the most simple. He casually drew a few complicated runes in the air in front of him. When the ghosts came into contact with the runes, they were immediately enveloped by the golden runes. They struggled non-stop, trying to break free from the runes' imprisonment. However, after a short while, they realized that all their efforts were in vain. Their struggles became slower and slower. In the end, their ferocious expressions became peaceful and peaceful. There was no trace of hostility left. With a flash of golden light, they soared into the sky and disappeared without a trace. They had been purified by the Dizong of Goguryo. The hostility in their bodies had been removed, and they had become normal ghosts. The 3 of them were very decisive in their attacks, and their power was not to be underestimated. When the Lord of the Underworld saw the ghosts disappear one by one, his expression did not change at all. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in the depths of his eyes. "Is that all?" the Lord of the Underworld asked. "Do you think that everything will be fine after killing those ghosts? Let me tell you, the most powerful thing about the underworld ghost art is that it can continuously replenish reinforcements. Song Jiangwang, you should be very clear about this." Song Jiangwang's face was pale as he asked, "Are you really going to do this?" The Lord of the Underworld nodded without hesitation. "Of course. What is he going to do?" The Dizong of Goguryo had a bad premonition, so he quickly asked. All these years, he had secretly fought with the Lord of the Underworld countless times. He knew very well how powerful the Lord of the Underworld was, so he had never left the Lord of the Underworld's 18 levels of hell. If it were not for his suppression, the Lord of the Underworld would have broken out of the water long ago. He would not have waited until today. He's going to use the underworld ghost art for real. Song Jiangwang's voice was trembling slightly. Ha ha ha. The Lord of the Underworld laughed maniacally when he heard this. The underworld ghost art, all the ghosts in the world will be at my disposal. Transform. The Lord of the Underworld opened his mouth, and a thunderous voice came out of his throat. He threw his hand, and a black light rushed out of the 18 levels of hell. Even the ghostly labyrinth outside could not hide its power. Boom! A loud sound exploded in the sky. It was as if a hole had been pierced in the sky, and a black hole appeared in the sky without any warning. This is the Lord of the Underworld's Yama seal. The Dizong of Goguryo exclaimed. Every Yama king had a Yama seal. When the Lord of the Underworld died, the Yama seal went missing. Everyone thought that it had been destroyed or lost. They did not expect it to still be in the hands of the Lord of the Underworld. This Yama seal was no doubt a divine artifact. It was very powerful. The Yama seal merged with the black hole, and the aura of heaven and earth changed drastically. Almost all the members of the ghost realm saw the strange phenomenon in the sky. Moreover, this strange phenomenon came from the ninth underworld. They were all guessing what had happened. Whoosh whoosh. A strong suction force rose from the ground. Many ghosts screamed and flew toward the black hole in the sky. These ghosts were not only ghost citizens, but also ghost servants, ghost generals, ghost marshals, and even ghost kings. They could not resist the black hole at all and were immediately sucked in. The ghost realm was in chaos.